What's up, guys? Today's interview is unlike any podcast I've ever done in my life. The last couple weeks, we've had my brother-in-law, who is Tara's brother, Tyson, staying with us in our guest house and helping us do some repairs and some different things on our house before we sell it. And Tyson's a recovering alcoholic, a drug addict, has been in and out of jail several times for the last few years. For the past several years, he hasn't even been really a part of our life because we just didn't feel like it was safe with his different things he had going on in relationships, and we just had to totally distance ourselves, even though we literally live in the same county. Like, we're the only family members who live right by each other, but we just couldn't be in contact with him. It's still wild to me to think of how there was no contact, and now he's living with us and we see him every day all the time. It's pretty wild how it happened. But anyway, he basically has like nothing, like no money, like starting over from scratch after everything that he's been through. So we've given him a job. It's a labor job, but I've kind of been talking to him about goals and where he wants to go from here, because we're not going to be here for very long. And even getting paid the amount that he can get paid from a job like this just isn't going to be enough to take care of the needs that he has to be able to see his kids more often and pay child support and get back on his feet in the way that he would need just to live a good, normal, healthy life and pay off some debts and stuff. So as I've been talking to him, it just made me think of a lot of people out there. You know, I know this is Millionaire University and the goal is to become financially free and make millions of dollars, but we all start somewhere. So I thought it might be kind of cool as I'm talking to Tyson and we're working together and working with him. And I can't take any of the credit. When I believe when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And this guy is ready. He's humble. He's a listener. But a lot of the things that I've been talking to him about, I thought would be good for you guys to hear. And I think there's a lot of good takeaways that you can take from the things that we've been talking about. So anyway, I asked him, I said, hey, do you want me to interview you? And he's like, okay, sure. And I thought we would share like 2 to 5 minutes of his background, just kind of show, hey, Tyson's kind of hit rock bottom and we're going to help him on his way. But this interview just turned into so much more. And I just let him talk and I listened. Of course, I interjected from time to time, but I just listened. And at first I thought, like this is Millionaire University. What does a story about someone who has hit rock bottom and struggled with drugs and alcohol and relationships and gone to prison, like what does that have to do with making money in Millionaire University? So I thought about editing it down to like 20 minutes, but I just couldn't. I don't know. Maybe it's just me because he's family, but I just have to believe that there's someone out there who has to hear his story. So I'm just going to put it all out there. And if you or anyone you know is struggling with any form of addiction or feels like they're at rock bottom, just know that you too can turn things around. Now, I have to say, we talk about some heavy stuff here. So if you have kids around, we talk about addiction. There's some sexual references. So if you have kids around or you're highly sensitive to some of these heavy discussions, we talk a lot about drugs and alcohol, then it might be best to skip or come back to this episode later. Also, if you don't want to hear all the backstory, but you do want to hear us talk about some of Tyson's goals and some of the things we talked about that he plans on doing to get in the financial situation that he needs to, that would help him accomplish the things that he wants to change in the place that he wants to get to, then you can maybe listen to a few minutes, skip around, and kind of towards the last hour, we more get into it. Other than that, part of our plan is to start bringing on some people that we are going to, I don't know if I want to say mentor per se, but kind of follow their journey, give them a little bit of guidance, accountability, soundboarding. And our hope is that you can follow along in their journey and it'll help you connect with them and see what they're doing and how they're overcoming the challenges and the struggles. And our hope is that in some way, shape, or form, seeing them go through what they're going through and the tactical, actual things that they're doing, but more importantly, how they're overcoming the inner struggles that we all go through, how they're overcoming those things and still accomplishing their goals. Our hope is that it'll help you push through and accomplish your goals and become the person that you want to become and to improve your life for you and your loved ones as well. Okay, so with that said and with that context in mind, let's get to the interview. Okay, take a seat. That's your microphone right there.
What up, y'all? Hello.
You want to hold it or do you want to lean into it? Here, you can
Hold it.
Don't tell me without the blanket. That's how I keep my legs warm.
Is it really, or is it soundproofing?
No, it's worth keep my legs warm. You ready?
I'm ready.
We're recording right now. But.
Oh. This is Tyson Wood, also known as a hope to die, drug addict, alcoholic, and I'm broke.
What do you mean by hope to die?
I would say that based on the day-to-day anxieties, fears, feelings, that death was a better option than living in that anxiety, fear, and emotional discomfort.
Do you still feel like that now?
100% the opposite.
Okay.
And that's the miracle.
How long ago did you feel like that?
A lot of that emotional discomfort was hidden, I think. I didn't see it. I didn't know what it was. And that's why the behavior was so insane and confusing. But I was able to start to see it by going to jail, 9 months of rehab. So on a daily basis, the daily discomfort was severe. And then the behavior got worse in jail and rehab. Because if I didn't have the things that I had sought and found in comforts, whether it be material, people, or drugs or alcohol, I wasn't doing good, man. Like, it was bad. So I would say that those were arrested probably end of July, the beginning of August of last summer.
You said those were arrested, or wait, you got arrested, or those?
The emotional discomforts in me were arrested.
Gotcha.
And stopped because I got in a guy's truck and he started treating what I call the disease of drug addiction, alcoholism.
No, it's okay. We can handle emotion here. It's all good. So you just want to share more about that, and I can ask questions, but
Yeah, well, I can go back into...
Yeah, do you want to go back? How did this happen? How did you get...
So the interesting thing now that I see it is, like, first off, how the heck does a drug addict become a drug addict and or alcoholic?
It's okay, man. Tara and I both cried on this podcast before. Your chance to let it out.
You said you might get emotional. I was like,
it's okay.
Yeah, right. I was like, no, I'm fine. No, it's pretty powerful stuff because, so first off, I was raised well. Like, there's no excuse for what's happened to me in my life other than just my decision making. And so, yeah, just brief history. Raised in Utah, one of the safest places you could grow up in at the time. We didn't lock our doors. It was almost like a Happy Valley type atmosphere. I had tons of friends, good parents, loving parents, and siblings that were supportive, and just your normal stuff as kids and brothers and sisters. I teased my sisters a lot. Probably looking back at that just for the reaction. I always did a lot of things for the reaction and feelings, I think. And so I'll tell you one thing I've looked at recently is I always had massive anxiety in social settings. Mm-hmm. And I'd like to think that wasn't the case, but it definitely was, because I remember in, 8, 9, or however old I was, my parents took me to an Easter thing with like the city vets park, and they lined up a bunch of kids, and there were just hundreds of eggs out in this baseball field, and you run. They tell the kids to go, and you run, and you pick up as many eggs and put in your basket as you can. But I remember, like, at an early age, that terrified me. Like, I just stood there frozen at the line and watched all these people, and I just thought that's because I didn't want to fight for things, but really it was just the discomfort of that social setting And and so I've looked back at that recently and like, oh, this thing's been going on since I can remember. Now that I'm, sober and being restored to some sanity on a daily basis. So, I would say just not very comfortable in my skin. That led into like seeking. I know I went pretty naturally defiant. So very defiant behavior. I just thought I didn't like people to tell me what to do, but it's just kind of an inborn defiance. So opposite. So even though I was raised well, I often throughout my childhood just continued to make mistakes, things that were not taught to me, and I knew were morally wrong. I constantly had struggles with, and that was like a conflict, my whole life, like, good and bad. So I had started to teach myself I'm a bad person, possibly morally. The results of my childhood and decision-making and my parents and stuff, being the oldest too, were like, yeah, this guy, and then like a lot of it was worth, like self-worth, self-esteem. Those things were not being built in a healthy way from childhood. A lot of it based on my behavior. I used to want to blame it on parents or the church. I was raised in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, so like a lot of good morals were instilled, but I just couldn't live up to those standards.
And then that caused you to feel additional shame and guilt, and then blame. That maybe I'm not putting words in your mouth. You tell me if. Yeah,
massive shame and guilt. A lot of it was blame. I took blame a lot.
Okay.
But then there was a phase of like I never wanted to talk against my parents because I think I had been instilled with such good morals that it's almost like the attitude of like, I'll just punish myself at this point. Like, you guys did a good job. Let me take over on the punishment side. I'll torture and punish myself.
That's interesting. Tara and I, we've done a lot of like self-development and marriage counseling courses, as I think anyone should, going through that hardship, who is married, right, or in a relationship. But one of the things we learned from one of the counselors was compliance and defiance. There's defiance and compliance, and neither are healthy, assuming they're on like far ends of the spectrum, right? There's a certain level of compliance and defiance, which can be good, but it's called boundaries. Boundaries are good. Working with people in a healthy way is good. But if we go to one part of the end too far, it can create unhealthy outcomes. Sounds like you were kind of had some of both of that. A little more defiance, but then you felt guilty and maybe resentful. I don't know.
So I would say that's beautiful. Each effort in adherence to a compliance or a standard was failed. So like if there was an attempt, which was rare on my part, but if I did attempt to adhere to parental standards, rules of your home, religious standards, there was typically a non-compliance. And then there'd be some suffering in a phase of adherence too. But I could never maintain that. And that was a conflict. So I specialized in non-compliance.
Yeah.
Today.
So defiance.
Massive defiance.
Yeah. Well, and Tara talks about how
blatant
she feels like she was overly compliant. Your family was amazing. It has nothing to do with your family. Anyone in any upbringing struggles with these different dynamics, right? Okay, let's fast forward. You became an adult. You did a little bit of college. You ended up kind of like becoming more compliant. You quote unquote turned your life around. And I say that just because there's no judgment. I'm not like a big right or wrong. It's like, it just is, right? I think we've talked about this a little bit.
A lot of it is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is. Yeah,
and
exactly.
I've come to know we are good and bad.
Okay.
Not one of us can say we're all good. Nobody's perfect. But some people's bad is badder than others.
Okay. Yeah.
It looks bad.
We could probably take another 10 minutes discussing that, but maybe we'll save that. But basically, you became an adult. You got come from your mission. I remember meeting you for the first time. You walk in. It was the first night that I put my arm around your sister, around Tara. I was like, oh, crap, her brother's here. You were like the coolest guy, man. I was a little jealous.
Thank you.
Because you were like super good looking and funny and charismatic. I was like, how am I going to get Tara to marry me if she has like such a cool brother? That's really what I thought.
Well, thank you. I did not think that. I thought, who's this big football player? He's going to kick my butt.
So then you got married a couple times, the same woman.
Yeah. So on a quick note on that, adherence to the church, and did do a good mission. Came home in a lot of fear and anxiety, especially around women.
Yeah.
I attract more dominant type females because of being a little more withheld. I attracted a woman who was
more passive, maybe.
Yeah, more passive. So that whole thing was an introduction to, never really had like girlfriends either, like kind of in my head. I don't know if they knew.
Yeah.
But
my understanding according to Tara was all the girls liked you, but anyway.
I was so awkward with women.
Yeah.
In college, even playing sports, like it was always the reaction of like, I would hear maybe somebody likes me, but my self-esteem was so low, it'd be like, either I didn't know what to do with it or I didn't believe it. Cause like, why would somebody like, power? That was pretty, I remember with Janelle. So the first interaction was a girl after my mission, and then instant failures. You know, we'd be hanging out in the car too late. I'd tell the bishop. And so I started breaking down, you know, like, you can't put your hands on female parts when you're a Melchizedek priesthood holder. And so then church would come. I was doing missionary prep. And so instant shame and guilt. And that became a quick battle that led to like, I'm just going to marry this person almost as a punishment. Like if I'm going to be doing these types of things.
Not that you didn't care about her.
A lot of self-seeking. I don't think I thought of others the way I do today either. So I worried about what others thought about me. Again, self-directed, like me. I never really thought about her and her feelings as, I mean, kind of like, that's been an interesting thing too, because like self-centered thinking, especially when you don't feel good and you carry shame, guilt, and these emotional discomforts, you automatically become self-focused, I've noticed, and it becomes ugly. It's an unattractive and kind of ugly quality. And then you compensate in a lot of ways behaviorally, like sports, things that outside, it's always outside things making you feel good. First, you know, I guess as an early age, it'd be like sports, snowboarding, a vehicle, then it becomes a job, but then a woman, a validation from a woman makes you feel good. So seeking women. So there was failures there, married her. And this is where like a lot of the ridiculousness starts, is married her as soon as we got married. And then it was outside of the temple. So it's automatically like, oh, what did this guy do? Because so interesting with that religious social environment is when you do make failures, people kind of know. It's like, well, if you're not getting married in the temple, then there must be a failure, a moral failure, call it sin. And so that started 3 months into that. Was like, what the heck? We got an annulment. And then I lived at the ski resort. Then drinking started happening again. I went to a hockey game, had a couple, and that's where the start, I think, of this drinking thing that I hid from myself. I didn't think I had problems with this because I didn't think I liked alcohol. But I had 1 or 2 beers that led to feeling good. Now I'm having a fun time at the hockey game. My buddy's doing a snowboarding premiere event. I go to that. It's a bar in Salt Lake. Mason's the bartender from high school. I mean, nobody really drinks, and bars are rare. And having a friend that's a bartender is pretty rare.
Yeah.
In Utah.
Totally.
California, like, no, not at all. But
and this was 20, I mean, it's more common now. This was like 20 years ago, right, or whatever. So kind of, these were non-expected, just kind of like, oh, wow, Mason's now, and then he's serving up cocktails, and I have to drive up to the top of a canyon, Big Cottonwood Canyon. It's snowing, and I got drunk. My friends all left, and I was going to sleep in my car because I was scared to drive up the canyon drunk. And I went to make a U-turn because there was like a homeless guy eyeballing me when I was in my car. So in my head, I'm like, I'm just making a U-turn to get on the other side of the street, and I get my first DUI after that. And that was before excommunication from the church. So I start having these instant consequences to behavior right after a mission. I was able to maintain on the mission, you know,
there was like protection there. But so then I get remarried to her, because we want to have sex and we're trying to live these standards. Like, well, if you want, because now we started to reunite. I kind of felt bad about the first 3-month marriage.
Yeah, you're trying to like make up for that. You're trying to like repent, or
now I'm thinking,
how do I make this right? How do I make this better?
I think there was that, like, maybe this is like, maybe I didn't treat her fairly, or I don't even know, but we got married. We went to Vegas, got married again.
Yeah.
And at that point, gave it another shot. That promoted, like, I'm going to change, get back into the church.
Yeah.
And I'll remember seeking the church's either approval of me or standing. Most guys that start to have failures just don't go back to church. So there was some courage that came from the desire to want to go back into adherence of it, just living in conflict of guilt of the church. And so I pursued counsel with the high priests, and I find out I'm excommunicated. That was actually pretty strong blow. I would say from that was like getting back into that marriage, thinking we're going to give it another shot.
Gotcha.
For failures prior. And then she came back into the church at that point too. Like when I first met her after my mission, she wasn't really
active is
not active.
They would say, yeah. Okay.
So this is when her and I like try to make the marriage work. We want the church to be a part of the second marriage. And in order to do that, I sought counsel with the high priests and to find out I'm excommunicated.
Were you already excommunicated, or you became after you shared everything, then you got excommunicated?
And that I think it's because
part of the repentance process is, well, you get excommunicated and then you change, and you know what I mean? And that's kind of the concept, right? Okay.
Well, and of course, excommunication due to the fact that Melchizedek priesthood had been through the temple, been on a mission.
Yeah, but your goal in there being like, hey, I want to do this thing, and then you get excommunicated. I'm not, by the way, as far as I'm concerned, I think you feel the same way. There's anyone listening, there's no judgment here. This is we're just sharing your story, just information. There's no judgment to Tyson or to any said church or anything. It's more about you. Anyway, anything else you want to add to that? Am I right in that? Is that?
Yeah, today it's nice. Like I don't feel the ability to be open and honest feels good. To sit here in front of you, these are things I didn't tell anybody. In fact, I've never had this conversation at depth. I don't know if this is a lot of people here on the audience with the church, the whole.
Well, I think whether it's the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints or a Christian church, or what I found, whether it's any religion, or what I've come to realize is religion is basically anything anyone like believes. And if I'm trying to say that more profoundly, but anything anyone believes is kind of like their religion, right? So it's not just one specific religion. It's any set of beliefs that we grow up with, or we adhere to, or we tie ourselves to. That to me is someone's religion. And we have conflict with these at certain times. For some people, like it might be like at a certain age, they believe in like Santa Claus. And I'm not comparing God to Santa Claus. I just want to make sure that's clear. It's not what I'm saying here. But then later on, you realize, like even Tara and I have gone through, like we're still active members in the church. That's not what this is about. And we love it. It's a great part of our life. But there were certain things that we believed and or thought, or ways that we looked at things that I don't feel like served us. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know that 20 years or 15 years ago, I could have had this conversation with you without feeling, and I'm going to get emotional, right? Without feeling like a sense of like condemnation in my heart, And I'm only getting emotional because that's on my bad. That was like pain and suffering caused on me, but it's all good. We're going through this journey and we're learning and growing, and all trying to like do our best with what we have. Right. So what I think is super cool though, you're in a spot now where you're sharing these things. And I think at times there's been blame, but now you recognize until we look internally, we cannot change.
Well, and by the grace of God, I love that statement because like I'm sitting here. So if I was paid for my behavior and my acts, like honestly, if there was justice, true justice, and if I was paid or sentenced based on behavior and acts, I should be in prison right now. Absolutely. Like, why am I not?
So fast forward a little bit, you come and start installing satellite dish for Tara and I. You go to Bakersfield, California, right? Now you went through your second divorce, I think in a way you're kind of quote unquote turn your life around a little bit, right? Again, and I don't want to say that. I don't know. Where were you? In my mind, that's what I think you were at the time. You were like, oh, I want to, I don't know. Where were you at that time?
I think floundering.
Okay.
Like, so I discovered possible disfellowship. It was actually a shock to me that I got full excommunication.
Okay.
So that came as, but again, my approach to that was like, oh, you're right. Like I deserve this. I deserve excommunication. The challenge with that was like the removal of membership from the church. And these are all experience. This is how I took it. I don't think it's what, if you want to cast blame, there's no blame. It's my experience and how I took it was, well, there goes membership of the church. And by the way, on your way out, you're going to need to leave the Holy Ghost here too. But because that's a gift that's given on when you're baptized. So I took it as like, oh,
I'm screwed. It's like downward spiral. Like
God is not with me.
Yeah, totally.
So I move into what you just talked about with going to Bakersfield Road. I'm like, okay, now I'm kind of on my own here with a desire to, always had like, I don't know, the concept, like I always thought I was a good, nice person. And that was a mask.
Yeah.
Like kindness and being a happy, lucky. There's a lot of guys that look happy and smile a lot in recovery, and they are the worst of the worst. Not criminals and, well, some criminals, but like they have an appearance of a decent looking guy that, because I'll be like, why is this guy here? You know, some guys in rehab look like they're cops. Like you should be a cop based on physical appearance, but it's really the inside parts of like one is just, I've watched him just really crash and burn. Bottomless bottoms. You hit a bottom, trap door. Next bottom, trap.
Crazy.
There's no bottom.
You heard rock bottom. He's found below rock bottom.
That's a real alcoholic right there. For a real alcoholic, there is no bottom. And death would be better than the bottom of jail and prison. So jails, institutions, death is the progressive qualities to help you see something you can't see. Like I can't see that I'm a drug addict, alcoholic, but those things like symptoms, like if I'm sick, I don't feel good, I'm suffering from an illness called drug addiction and alcoholism. Man,
it's all good, man. This is your story.
It's something about being here, like in front of you.
I love you, man.
Love you too. There's like a weird, I don't like saying drug addict, alcoholic in front of you and Tara. It's weird. Because it's like, that's part of the disease. Like, they say this, like by every form of self-deception and experimentation. Not this, you know? I didn't want to be a drug addict. And just that label's powerful in this environment. As soon as I leave here and I go to, you know, back to that's what it is. Like that helps me realize like I'm a drug addict, alcoholic, because I go work with guys and go straight into a recovery atmosphere. Because man, I was going to do everything I could to not be this. The pursuit of maybe if I just do life this way, I won't have to be. I didn't think I was an alcoholic, man. Thought I just had weird problems and I was a crazy person.
So when did you first realize that you, by the way, you're the one who shared all this stuff with me. I don't, as far as what I see in you, I just see an amazing person who's been through some hard things, as we all have. And I'm blown away at where you're at now and where you're going, you know? So for me, it's uncomfortable to like, quote unquote, label you. Like, I don't label you as like an alcoholic or a drug addict, but I think you said that's important for you to have that label. I don't know. I guess maybe label isn't the right word, but just to admit and recognize that is there, so you're not in denial. Is that kind of
so that's the obsession. They talk about this obsession, and if you look at the obsession, it's if I just do it this way one more time, just give me one more shot at this, and if I just arrange it this way and do it this way, I'll get a different result. Or, you know, maybe like in a relationship, a toxic relationship, like with my ex, is
you're not talking about your ex-wife. You're talking, yeah. And just for the record, for anyone listening, like,
yeah,
you have a couple ex-wives.
You'll notice through the story that there's a massive failure with male to female relationships for Tyson here. But with my ex, it was this obsession. Like, how did I keep going for that long in such a toxic, horrific environment, and after beating yourself up for a long time, like in a unhealthy, sick way, I found a person who could really treat me poorly. And how did that continue to happen? Because I wanted to say she loved me all the time, and I loved her. And the reality to that was the obsession that maybe this time is going to be a loving, honest, kind, good partner and a good parent and mother of our son and her two kids. And so in my head, I wanted to say like I was this guy trying to live a family life, and it was just not that. I mean, it was horrible. So,
well, and that's the main reason why we separated ourselves from you and most of the family overall, right? Was the drugs was one thing. We didn't totally know, I guess, a ton about all that was going on. Like here and talking to you now, I'm like, oh wow, I wasn't fully aware, but it was this person. And I've learned to like cast no judgment because I've got my struggles. Like obviously if someone's acting in it with a certain behavior, they have either been through something themselves or they have something going on in the brain that's off or something, right? They're confused or
the mind is sick.
Yes. So all I know is I don't know that I've ever met or known of a more sicker person because she came across as not, anyway, just the things that she would send to the family, like just horrific things that she sent to my wife. And she didn't mess with me a whole lot, but anyway, she knew better.
There was a physical.
Yeah, no,
that woman will get physical,
yes.
Even with a linebacker.
Yes. Walking into my house and handing me your guys' baby and saying he's your problem. I'm like, whoa, what is going on? Anyway, but like destroying property and literally like our family, like we wouldn't even let you know how, like we've lived here in Rancho Santa Fe for 2 years. When did you find out where we lived?
3 to 4 weeks ago.
Like 3 to 4 weeks ago, right? Because you had this relationship with this other person who destroys, like we fell in danger, like literally physical danger for the safety of our family. And that's what helped me realize, like, I guess how sick you were, that you would still be in a relationship with this person who was incredibly sick and threatening your family and your other kids and your other ex-wife, not the first ex-wife, the second ex-wife, right? It was just like, wow, you know?
Let's look at that.
Okay.
Because as you're talking, like, this is gnarly.
It is crazy.
On multiple realities going here as you were talking. So you have a person who you are in fear, like terroristic type fear. This woman does crazy things. And first off, I want to blame her, you know. But the crazy part about that is, like, here's the reality. It's a hostage-taking, terroristic, pathological liar who's capable of murderous thoughts, in my opinion. Murderous. Like, you see people on ID channels.
I shudder when you say, I don't even want to think about that. I shudder and I want to pretend like that's not, but yeah. Yes. Yes. Whenever I would think of if something crazy were to happen, like you hear about on the news, like who's the one person that would, anyway, okay, we'll leave it at that.
So the hard, stark reality is a terroristic, hostage-taking, hostage negotiating type pathological You can label these things narcissistic, abusive, adulterous, murderous person who's hurt and sick, really. Now I want to go into justification of behavior, but like that's just what it is. Honest facts, I had to come to see that reality in rehab because the obsession of my mind and this sick, unhealthy mind that I was living.
You were literally addicted to this person.
I was massive dependence, yes. Yeah. So the exchange, this goes into all kinds of stuff with like abusers and abusive relationships, but just the reality is that's what it is. You know, this is, and I hope I hope she gets what I get. So that it's not trying
better.
to like.
You mean better by that?
Better. I hope she gets the same path that was.
Even if that causes her to have to go down hit rock bottom, which
jail's a loving path.
Yeah. Okay.
Prison's a loving path. Rehab's a loving path.
Okay.
Like that's like I could say I wish her jail and incarceration.
Yeah.
That would be good for humankind.
You mean in a good way. Yeah.
Because that so I hope she gets what I got. I always wanted her to get better.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? I do love the person, but the relationship is sick. This is a person who there's no bottom to that. Like there'd be a red flag, like, oh, she's texting another guy. No, there would be like she's performing sexual acts on the guy while talking to me on the phone while I'm getting milk at the grocery store, and them laughing in humiliation. Like, and so who's the sicker party? Like, I somehow said that's okay. She's just mad. And when I get into rehab and jail, we're getting married again, guys.
When I dropped you off a few years ago at that one rehab place, she literally broke in the middle of the night.
Oh, and that's the other reality is like,
just crazy.
Here's what I could tell myself. Like, I'm so sick at the time because the recovery is phenomenal. Like, recovery is powerful. And so in that state of full flight from reality, this guy's just a lunatic. And so on one hand, you got, she's willing to break into a rehab with cameras to come get me. She's willing to go to places still today to write on the wall. She's connecting with people in my, like she's infiltrating. No wonder you guys had the feeling. I mean, this woman will not, no filter. She won't stop at whatever. And somehow it never gets caught a lot of the time. It's crazy. But I could look at that and say, it's that good, guys. No other man gives her what I give her. I'm that good.
Totally.
And that could be sexually, that could be washing dishes, the foot rubs, the back rubs. Because when I'm there in that environment, I'm performing.
Yeah.
It's taking care of kids. Like I'm enabling this woman's life to be a little bit better than it is on her own. But it's not fun for her to go date a 24-year-old, or not even date, to go sneak around with another guy. Because when I'm home doing the dishes, taking care of her 2 kids, and taking care of my son, it's a lot funner for her to go cheat on me than when I leave. So when I leave that environment, I've escaped. And this is the sick, this is what happened for 7 years. So every time you guys got brought into this and she's trying to drop my child off, the little baby we had made together, that poor baby is used as a negotiating. It's almost like if he wants his, and if it wasn't my son, like when you dropped me off in Normal Heights and you guys, like, we didn't even know what to do with myself. And you guys found some, like, these are unmanageable, messed up situations I get myself into through my behavior and unhealthy thinking is, like, she broke in and took that. Remember how you took me to get the equipment. It was $1,000 equipment. They told me I had to sign for it. Like, if you lose this, dipwad, you're paying us $1,000, you know, for this alcohol monitoring equipment. If I left that sober living to go to a meeting, they'd call me because I was on house arrest. And so she came and stole my equipment. Almost. Oh my gosh. We were coming back from the gym in a Prius, and she hit a speed bump because she's driving too fast, hit the speed bump, almost jumped into the car. The Uber driver screamed, and she's got my equipment because I won't talk to her. And I couldn't even talk to her because I had to give up my phone and stuff anyway. But, like, these were crazy, insane events. But me, I'm going like this. Oh, there's my babe. Like, as she's mad woman driving down the street. Almost.
She wants me so, like, that's how bad she wants me.
She loves me. She can't live without me.
And I get that. I've gone through that with Tara but, like, 1%, like to where like I wanted so bad to be like loved and desired like at a greater level. You know what I mean? Like how much love and desire is there, right? So I could see in a sick sort of way how that would be like, okay, this person really likes me, you know.
Oh, I felt
If you're sick,
if you are sick,
if you're sick,
this is a really heightened emotional experience for a sick person. It's like, dang, this woman will go to no end for me.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking in my sick head. And maybe if I do go back to her this time, it'll be different. The obsession of the mind is so powerful, because I was like, so maybe after I get out of here and go back to her, she'll start acting right. You know, we'll have a healthy, happy relationship. We'll raise the kids. Here's the reality to that situation is, where's my dish boy who's not in the kitchen cleaning the dishes and taking care of the household so I can be out with other men? It's not fun. Who's going to watch the kids while I'm out having whatever she's doing with other men? Because she had a massive problem, and I never saw it. Like, I felt it, but how could I not see? And I did see it in the beginning too. But like, this woman has a sexual problem where she can't not have extra relationships. There was multiples. Yeah. Like, this is a woman who had multiple relationships in her back pocket from the time I met her to the end. And I finally saw that so here's the crazy part is in rehab, 8 months of it, which I couldn't even hardly do. I was getting kicked out of every rehab, irrelevant of the consequences. Now I've got myself in a position where if she drops me off coffee crystals and nicotine pouches and a telephone hidden somewhere and I go out and get it, I go to prison for that behavior. Wow. So irrelevant of, it's not, you know, great bodily injury. It's not domestic violence. Now it's like any little thing that I break in a institutional setting puts me in prison. So that's when I start to see the insanity of like, I can't stop doing these things. And then when I started, like, I was full flight from reality. Somehow I started to actually see things for the way they were, which is like, this woman is a liar. She lies to me daily. She's terroristic and hostage taking. She uses threats, manipulation, power, control, and terror on a daily basis while I was in rehab. Like, I was in jail, and in another jail with her while in jail. So like a mental jail of the mind, because like I was scared in jail to not call her. Like, you know, if I didn't call her for 3 days because I couldn't, she's calling, and she's not even supposed to be talking to me. Yeah. So there was no barrier, but I couldn't stop getting in her van.
This whole time you're drinking alcohol, like, when did like illegal drugs?
I would say had like your normal experimentation with drugs. Like when I went to play junior college football, I always thought I didn't like alcohol.
Talking like marijuana and stuff, or
marijuana was the start, then experimentation, mushrooms, ecstasy.
Oh, so you did that even in college. I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, when I came to California, it was the good chronic, which Utah didn't have. If I really look at it, because again, now that I'm starting to see my drug addiction, alcoholism, because it hides itself in your mind. Like it does, you do not want to see it. Again, by every blatant denial, like the mind is powerful. But if I look now sober, like a main reason of going to play junior college football is I had failures in the church that I wanted to hide, shame and guilt, to not go on a mission because I didn't want to tell people my failures. So to hide from that, I went and played. Plus, I thought football is cooler than church stuff anyways, so that helped justify it. But one of the main reasons is a couple of my buddies got to California and called and said, you guys have to see Chronic. Like we hadn't seen we were Mexican flat squished weed with seeds and stems is what we were used to in Utah, and it was hard to get in Utah. Here in California, it's like you've got to get here because of the hydroponic and the Chronic and the red little flowered beautiful marijuana. So a huge motivator was like, we need to go play junior college football in California so we can smoke weed the way we want to smoke weed, so our parents aren't watching and we don't have to go. Like we would drive, you know, like the way to Cedar Fort in Lehigh. We would drive a good 15 miles out of town, bury our weed under a rock, go out there, smoke it, look at the clouds, and just chill out, eat a peanut butter jelly sandwich, trip out on that stuff, and then come back home to our Mormon LDS families. Make sure that the smell had come off of us enough by the time we got home. Drinking was harder. Drinking was harder to control. We'd still do it here and there. One time we were digging in the mud, got stuck drinking, sticking logs under our tires because it's real muddy up in the Hemagogs in Utah by Highland. And helicopters are chasing us, and we're running in bushes in the rain. My buddy is so scared of the cops that he spent the night up in the hills. Like, we don't know how he got home the next day. The sheriffs pick us up and drop us off into Sandy, and my dad had to come get me. And I thought maybe we hid the drinking part from him. I know we sobered up quite a bit by the time he picked us up. But, I mean, that was just the beginning of, I didn't think I was a drug addict, alcoholic, but that was high school. And then football, same thing, like discovered ecstasy and did that for some time. It was pretty much with some type of moral filter. Like, I didn't want to be a drug addict, alcoholic, so I thought in my head it was just experimenting.
You're just trying something out.
And I guess just the pursuit of feeling good, because we did smoke a lot of weed. All of us did in college. Then it was a cleanup phase, adherence to the church. You know, I did feel, again, a
and the law, maybe, I don't know.
Law was
not really. It was more never crossed your mind. Really, it was more
not too much.
More immoral. Like, oh, I'm doing something bad. Okay.
I was surprised when I was in jail. I'm like, I'm not a criminal.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. How do you end up in jail?
So
you were in jail. How many times have you been in jail?
Oh man, quite a bit. A couple weeks in Milpitas prior to my mission. So even before going on a mission.
Oh, you were in jail before your mission too.
I had to drive all the way back to California for a warrant. And I Elmwood Correctional Facility and learned how to make the ramen noodle spreads. But we sat on those, and I'd steal bread out of we get up at 4 a.m. when the moon's out for breakfast. And that was less politics than I remember now. The politics in San Diego, jail in San Diego is rough, man. The homelessness, and I thought LA, but San Diego is one of the dirtiest, grossest jails worse than LA. I thought LA would be worse, but San Diego's bad due to the lunatics that roam free, that get incarcerated. So it's a pretty rough environment.
What's the craziest thing that's ever happened in jail?
Everything's crazy in there. We throw kites, strings from cell to cell. So how do you communicate when it's COVID and you can't even get out? You're just being locked up in a cell with 2 roommates. One guy, he had a really bad ulcer. So every time they brought food and we were starving to death, we'd be starving, couldn't wait to eat our food. And then this guy is puking the whole time because he's so hungry. He would eat, upset his ulcer, puke in the toilet. He's vomiting in the toilet. And it's weird. Like, you try to be nice to each other because you're all sharing this miserable experience. But we'd be like, hey, man, maybe if you eat slower and drink a little water so it passes through your ulcer, instead of just gulping it in because you're starving, then puking it all out in the sink. He did that every day.
Wow. So,
like, eating what you never got to eat. I did get a tattoo on my hand through.
That's a pretty sweet tattoo you got there on your hand. We won't share with anyone what it says.
I don't know why that, of all the tattoos, but
your parents still haven't seen it, right?
We have. I used paint pen when I was in rehab. I flesh-colored paint pen.
It took me a second when you came over the first time. I was like, what are you asking me, Tyson? The way it's on your hand, too, is like an invitation.
It was going to be for the girls. But in general, if it's a guy that gives you the wrong look, too, oh, yeah, let's do it, man. You want to go? Like, let's do it. I'm down. You want a piece of this? Male or female, you want a piece of this?
All right, I think we'll just skip over that part there. So
fights, all kinds of stuff.
But you said in jail, it's like almost like they're like gangs within jail, and you have to like.
Oh yeah, instantaneous.
People have to do things to be included, and then you get more time. And
yeah,
weren't you like one of the leaders or something like that?
Well, Whites or Woods. My last name's Wood.
Okay.
So, that helped. Not really, but.
You're like one of the nicest guys I've ever met. And you became kind of like a leader in one of the hardest jails systems in our country, essentially.
They were desperate in there. I was celled up with Chainsaw, who held the keys, and ironically, Lakeside gangsters, when those guys come in, they take the keys, and then of course you have Brothers and Others, and then you have Southsiders, and then you have Pisces. A lot of guys, because we're right here on the border, a lot of human trafficking, drug trafficking. So you got a lot of that going on, and those are typically Pisces. Southsiders are Hispanic gangs that are here. Pisces are gangs that go both sides, primarily Mexico. And then any other color besides white is Brothers and Others. So you instantly come in. You can't walk through, like, even though we didn't get let out of our cells much, I would go out to use the phone in a shower every third to fifth day because you're just locked up looking at the wall. But if you walk through the wrong tables, you'll get your butt like 21-second beat down. Yeah.
21 second?
If you cut the wrong tables. And these are politics that have gone on from the beginning. So for ages, nobody walks through Brothers and Others in the woods, sectors back to your cell. And so you learn through mistakes, but like multiple times they're yelling like 21 seconds. You just got to beat down.
And how do they get away with that? They're in jail. Aren't there people making sure people don't get beat up or hurt? Or
so that's where, like, once you get into jail, it's hard to get out, man.
Wow.
So you pick up a case, you pick up multiple cases that get you into jail. You're trying to be prosecuted for the criminal activity that got you there, while you're adding two more, because the behavior, like they call it Thunderdome. But when I finally, after 2 months of being in a jail cell, got transferred to George Bailey, that's Thunderdome, and that's a dorm setting. So now it's racks of beds lined up. So you got about 20, 30 guys in this glass barracks, and with the day room, there's multiple, like, upstairs glass room, bottom glass room, because the deputies and correctional officers can see you in there. You shower in front of the deputies. Like, the shower typically is like a low pony wall. So, yeah, as soon as I got to George Bailey, I had just come from holding the keys because Chainsaw had left. There was nobody else to turn.
Explain holding the keys. I think you've told me before, but I don't know if everyone knows.
The power to enforce the politics.
So you were like in charge.
Hey, just cut. That guy's getting 21 seconds, that would roll this guy out. People would come up to me with issues. There's drug. So there's a lot of, there were drugs in jail in the beginning. I've used drugs out of people's butts.
Wow.
And I'll tell you this right now. If I ever were to relapse and I start using drugs again, I'm keeping them in my butt 24/7. Because if I do get in, because I couldn't ever know when I was going to jail. I couldn't stop going to jail. You'd ask that question from the time I started doing methamphetamines and the time I got on calendar when I found out I had another warrant was January to, I was incarcerated September 7th. Man, I'd gone to jail almost every month and bailed out $2,500 here, $1,500, $3,500 there. A lot of it was able to be provided through myself or my crazy ex-girlfriend, which that was, oh my gosh, the end of the insanity was gnarly. Mm-hmm. The things that happened while that, like, messed up on drugs. Mm-hmm. Meth was powerful, but it was almost like this. Drinking had been off and on because I could never drink successfully. That was the problem. Once I started drinking, I couldn't control the amount I would drink because that depth of not feeling good emotionally and not so much physically, but just, the anxieties. And like, as soon as I woke up in the morning when I was with trying to flip a house, but I'd wake up and coffee and stuff's not even, I would wake up, if it wasn't in the fridge, later, babe, going to work, I would get 2 tall cans at 7-Eleven.
That's right. I
would drink those with my 2 DUIs, with my 3 suspended license tickets, while my truck's being impounded, no insurance, no registration. I mean, these are symptoms that may help you look inward to be like, maybe I am a drug addict, alcoholic. Mm-hmm. Not me at that time. By every form of self-deception, I'm not an alcoholic. I just need this. I need this because I don't feel good. Because when I woke up and my eyeballs and my eyelids opened up and it was day again, the anxieties of the day, the despair, the pitiful incomprehensible demoralization of just waking up sober. Because I always thought the pitiful, incomprehensible demoralization came from being a drug addict or alcoholic and the behavior. No. When your body is absent of drugs and alcohol, that floods in because you're drinking to try to make your bad feelings feel good. And so you drink to make your bad feelings that don't feel good feel better. But as you drink that, you become powerless over it. Your life becomes unmanageable. I mean, I am massively powerless and my life is just a mess. And so to cover all that up on a daily basis, the dependence on, like, I'd wake up to drink that's about 4 beers, and that's on my way to the job site. Get to the job site, I'd also be looking at pornography. I would get up, drink 2 beers, look at pornography while driving my dually truck, and I'd get to the job site as soon as I got there. Make sure that scenario is going good. The contractors are doing. I'm also working. I'm running to Home Depot, and as soon as I would leave there, a couple more beers out and about, and this is just a function. And I'll just be completely honest. And then, you know, a couple massage parlors, not just one. Like, I'd go get a massage, whether it be a happy ending or not, and I would seek that out. This is while Jessica.
I know what you're referring to, but you're using terms I'm not totally familiar with. But I'm saying for the record. I don't know what
this is a day in the life of a drug addict alcoholic who didn't think he was. Meanwhile, on the flip side, Jessica just had our baby, our son.
Wow.
She's home trying not to drink. She's a raging alcoholic, and we're trying to raise our son. I'm trying to flip a house with Joe, and this is all going on while I have an introduction to Alcoholics Anonymous. Joe's trying to tell me that Joe's institution's death, Tyson, and I'm laughing, eating a burrito when I'd crash land on his couch. And it's just so much going on there. But that was just a daily thing, just so I could get home and then drink more with her with the drugs. Like, after that had gone on for 7 years, and so I could never do that, what I just described. I could maybe, and that's to feel good, right? I'm doing that crazy crap just to feel good. And by the end of 3 months of that, crash landed. Like, when I came to your house that Thanksgiving, I didn't even know my parents were in town. I'm oblivious. I'm just trying to manage my crazy effed up life. And man, I was bad. I was coming off of a good 3-month bender of living that way, which then led into one of my construction guys who now he's fighting with his wife. Me and him are sleeping in hotels that we can barely pay for, trying to flip a house and work on a house. I mean, it is bad. And we're just holding on to everything we can. There had been a small introduction to, like, cocaine a little bit, but I could never get a hold of it. And that was like, there was so much shame and guilt around that I somehow kept from, like, those things. It was just, this was all mainly alcohol. Marijuana didn't work anymore. Too much anxiety and paranoia from marijuana, because marijuana only works if your life's good and you have money. For me.
Interesting.
For me. You can kick back and...
So maybe we don't want you to have too much money and have life be good.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Well, at this point...
Oh no, we're going to ruin you.
But here's what I found. Like, when I did... This is coming off of the divorce and a really amazing marriage with beautiful kids, is...
So just for the record, like, there's a few marriages here. There was 2 marriages to the first wife. A beautiful marriage. The second one, not perfect. I'm not saying perfect, right? No marriage is perfect.
Pretty good.
Yeah, but pretty amazing.
I really goofed up.
Yeah, 3 beautiful children.
A real estate business that you
very successful,
helped us get into.
Very successful business person.
Flipping $1 million houses in Beverly Hills at the height.
Yeah.
Flipping 80 houses in 1 year.
Dang, I didn't really
get that
many.
We were killing it.
That's insane. You guys had a beautiful home, beautiful family. You had it all, essentially. Right?
We were living like kings.
5,000
5,000 square foot, 1 story, 2 kitchens, 5 acres, Priuses, truck, lifted truck, dually truck, golf carts, motorcycles, gorgeous view, beautiful kids' faces to look at every day,
kids.
Family living with us off and on, and I was miserable. So that's what I...
Because you were dealing with Tyson. You were trying to, inside, you were dealing with you.
You can make $1 million, you can make 10 million, or you could be... Look at all the famous... NFL, the athletes that have hit the climax of their athletic hopes and that are struggling. Dylan Baxter was one of my bunkies. Incredible, like one of the youngest. I don't know if people know him, but incredible NFL player.
Yeah, one of your bunkies where?
When I was at the Wayback, right as I was finally able to graduate.
Wayback being a
residential drug and alcohol
facility.
Court ordered, court approved.
Wow. Okay. So that's gotcha.
There's a lot of different kinds of residential rehabs. I went through like the bottom of the barrel, get out of jail, Medi-Cal's paying for it, garbage dumps, rehabs that are like hardcore and like being in jail.
In some ways, you talk about going to jail and the drugs in a way as, I don't know if blessing is the right. I mean, Tara says, and I think you kind of said this, you seem happier than she's ever seen you. And I don't think I saw all quote unquote parts of you before. You've always come across to me as like a very happy-go-lucky, funny, outgoing, great personality type person, right? Which you are.
That was the mask.
Gotcha.
Wear that around like I want people to think I'm doing well.
Yeah.
Pride and ego too.
So you're in a spot right now where you have next to no, and you have a couple $100 now, right? Like you're doing pretty
Thanks
good.
to you guys, yeah.
Yeah. A few weeks ago you had nothing, but now you have a couple $100.
Wow. Yeah.
But you're pretty much broke. You don't have a vehicle. You're driving our truck, right? But you don't have your own, like hardly anything. But you are happy, seems like. I know you still have like insecurities and things you're working through, right? But are you happy now? I don't know. Are you happy?
I've never experienced. So jail's institution's death for the alcoholic drug addict, or on the flip side, I'm sentenced to a life of happiness, joy, and freedom, one day at a time. Every day I wake up the opposite of what I described. Like I wake up in gratitude as soon as slept in a little bit later today, but usually I get up and there's a meditation period of self-examination. I look at emotion. There's been given a program and a way spiritually to connect with God, whatever concept of God it is. Mine comes more from our background. And so, I look at this newfound relationship with a creator, with whatever name we want to put on it, Heavenly Father, God, Jesus Christ. And so I'm able to literally Bluetooth into that relationship, connect daily. And if there are things like anger, jealousy, resentment, self-seeking, bitterness, I have a process to work through that right off the bat, remove those, and literally like every character defect that I have and carry, good or bad, God uses that for good throughout the day, I feel. And I have a constant stream of happiness, joy, patience. Like that's been the power of this program is, for example, like when I find out that my house manager is now dating my ex who's trying to infiltrate my safe, sober place, my first reaction is anger and resentment, like self-seekingly, like, hey, man, this is my safe place.
Natural response. Yeah, for sure.
Look at you guys, too. Like, I think this makes sense for all of us. Like, Jessica's kept at bay, and we finally, like, this is a safe place. We don't have to worry about her coming in here. I had found a safe place for about 7 months. I didn't think she knew where I lived. I didn't think that she could get in here and disrupt the peace and whatever I was doing daily, because I was happy. Like I had found happiness in sober living, which I couldn't do. That's the worst way to live, but I'm okay. In the worst environment, I am not just okay, I'm happy, and I'm grateful to be there. Has been the power of the walk through hell on earth. And like the sunlight of the Holy Spirit, like I can barely walk past from here to that back casita that you guys are letting me live in without just my eyeballs look at like the grandeur and majesty. Everything's amazing. How did somebody build this house amazing? How did you guys become so not just amazing and live well, but like you guys are advocates of growing humans, like building families, helping people. Like I see how God uses, like, if we let him,
Trying to get me, man.
But it's powerful. So like I have a whole aspect of like, and then after a time, man, you're going to have to work real hard at making me feel crappy today.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to have to work hard at making me feel crappy about myself. Because freaking hated when people would say, oh man, you need to love yourself. And you need this. And like, you know, I just be like, I will strangle your neck if you tell me I need to love myself again. And a lot of it I didn't see.
Because you didn't.
And I didn't want to look at that
No,
either.
because you didn't love yourself. Is that what you're saying?
Apparently.
Yeah.
To everybody around me. And the way that I was allowing people, like you were talking, boundaries. I mean, you can literally, if you're a female in a relationship with me, like, you're not even supposed to have one and you're hiding him from me anyways, and you're messing with my brain the next day about it, that was just a joke or wasn't really who it, like, the crazy lunacy of this last relationship, but knowing deep inside that she's literally sexually doing stuff with a guy over the phone. Like, why? And then I think I'm funny, like, why don't you give him your attention if you're doing sexual things to him right now on the phone calling me? So you two can laugh at me, make yourself feel better. Why don't you give that guy your attention? You know, this is how I thought my reaction to it was, is like, hey, give him your attention. Like, haha, you guys are calling me while you're doing that. It's like, that is.
As if you're winning.
Yeah.
Sucker.
Exactly. Like, it's this sick game of hurt. And so to go from like that disgusting, gross environment, but even leaping out of that into jail and rehab, or like, let's just pretend all of those things didn't happen and me and her can get married again and raise our kid healthily again. I mean, that is some weird, crazy, bizarre, sick, unhealthy, not normal stuff. Most people don't go through that.
Okay, so you went through a lot of things, had beautiful family at one point. I mean, you still have your kids. We'll get into that. But the marriage had seeming all the things, but you hadn't worked through Tyson yet. And then eventually at some point led to the drugs, the abuse of alcohol, the incredibly unhealthy relationships and codependence, and to jail, right? Congratulations on your rise to the top in jail, by the way. But
thank you. I did hold the keys, the power.
You had the keys, but it led to like complete rock bottom. This wasn't that long ago, right? But like 7 months sober, is that? 7 months
of real sobriety.
I know you tried to claim a little longer, but
I'd like to take a couple years of sobriety, but it took about 18 months to produce maybe 2 to 3 months of real sobriety.
Okay.
Sanity is restored gradually.
Why? Like, what makes you so happy? I mean, you're doing this 12-step program. When you talk about the program, the 12-step program, right? But I've heard the 12-step program, but I never really understood. Like, maybe, and I know you could probably talk about this for 3 hours. Maybe we'll talk about this another time. I think you're really good at this, by the way. I think you should maybe take up podcasting. But what, I like talk. Yeah, this is great because usually I'm telling, we're like saying we can't talk as much because you and I both like to talk, but we got to get to work. So now we're quote unquote working and we're talking. It's great.
Solution.
We are working the system.
Problem solved. Wow.
Why are you so happy? Like, I genuinely want to know. Like, I'm constantly working on, like, we have a podcast called Millionaire University, and the goal is to like make money so you can have freedom, and money's important and all this stuff, but ultimately we want to be happy. And I'm looking across this guy who like has literally nothing as far as financial means, but he's happy. Like, how did you get from rock bottom to where you struggled with that? You're 40, how old? 40?
44.
Struggled being happy for 43 years of your life. And I see how happy you are. Like, we can see it. You're staying with us. Like, at the beginning, we're like, oh, we're letting Tyson in our house. How's it going to go?
Thank you, by the way.
You wake up every day, you whistle. I mean, I'm not literally whistle while you work, but you're so happy. You're literally doing like a labor job. You went from having a successful business years ago. You're doing a labor job. You're super, like, how?
I found gold in life. It's like an endless gold mine that I sneak to every day. It's like go in there. But the thing about the gold, this is the craziest, weirdest part about it, is like, to get the gold, you have to give it away before you find it. And then when you find it, you keep giving it away.
Mm.
So the gold's not just for me. In fact, in order for me to find it, I had to pretend like I found it. It was weird. And so that has a lot to do, I would say, with like step 2 of Alcoholics Anonymous, like came to believe that there's gold. Because I'll tell you this, I felt like daily. And I wasn't good. Like I couldn't, man, you take drugs and alcohol away from an alcoholic. That is the worst thing. Because now you're in your natural, normal condition. Medical doctors will say, give this guy Zoloft, give this guy, like he's got a chemical deficiency. He needs antidepressants. He can't think, or he thinks too much and his mind's attention deficit, throw an H in there. It's hyper deficit. Like he can't stay focused. You know, like we could call it all these medical things from a medical doctor. I found a spiritual solution that addresses all of those. I am sober today. Like every fiber of my body, minus caffeine and nicotine. So the guys that are in the, like Kenny, who's taken 15 years of sobriety today.
Oh, that's awesome. Congratulations. That's cool.
Rarely drinks coffee.
Congrats, Kenny.
Yeah.
You're the man.
He's asked me to deliver that token to him today too. So it's a massive honor. God's.
Where is that meeting?
Tuesday night men's meeting. La Mesa.
Just trying to think of what I have going on tonight. That'd be pretty cool.
You're more than welcome.
That'd be awesome.
Will should be there. That men's group is what's taught. They've taught me how to mine and dig and fish and give. The main power is give it. Like once you find this, give it to all these guys who still suffer. And it says an even greater display is amongst our family, respective like businesses that we work in. So I don't just go to Alcoholics Anonymous looking for other sick people to work with and give away. Like an even greater one is showing that in the environments of your home, your family, your kids, and your employment areas. But so the happiness, you go to jail, you be miserable for a long time. Like the recipe is complete, whatever it is.
We're not encouraging everyone to try to go to jail. We're just saying continue.
That's my path for folks. It could be emotional bottoms. Like once you can admit defeat, complete defeat, like human aid wise, I cannot produce in material. Like what makes you happy? Like for me, what made me happy growing up? Friends, having my buddies, a lot of happiness there. Food, you eat food, you go eat, that makes you happy, like, or feel good, even say, joy, happiness. Like I sought things that made me feel good. I did not see my alcoholism while I was sober, because in my 10-year marriage, for 5 of those first years, completely sober, if you want to say sober that way, I was not sober in my mind. I still had the sick, unhealthy thinking. But look at buying 80 houses. I didn't see this until recently. Like, it was really hard for me to admit that I was an alcoholic because I didn't drink long enough. I mean, so for 10 years of my marriage, didn't drink or do anything the first 5. Started smoking weed, smoked weed for maybe 3 years. And then the last year, as soon as I started drinking, divorce. Wow. I always thought I drank because of the divorce and losing the business and the kids. No, just I can't drink successfully. I can't control the amount I take. And the other part is when I don't do those things and drink and feel that the happiness that comes from dependence on drugs and alcohol, because it's artificial happiness. Drinking makes my bad feelings feel good. I'm happy. Xanax makes your anxieties go away. So Xanax. Fentanyl takes away your pain. Vicodin, like all those opiate-driven drugs, all it is for pain. I feel pain. Pain, suffering, depression. I don't feel good. I'm not happy. Artificial drugs provide that happiness. This is if you don't have a belief or faith in anything spiritual or in God or anything like that. But like, so if I'm in a physical condition and I can see things and I have a physical body, I'm pursuing material wealth, cars. When you do well in business, like I got more. I was able to maintain sobriety by flipping 80 houses in a year with Janelle. That was an allergy. They talk about drug addiction and alcoholism as an allergy. And so I had an allergic reaction to, I bought a foreclosure. With you. We bought that first foreclosure thanks to you. And,
oh, thanks. You're blaming me now? I'm just kidding.
You did the Ward Hannigan. So
yeah.
Janelle's dad probably. So we
partnered up for a little bit. Yeah,
we bought that first foreclosure.
Yeah, I remember
together
painting that room.
We went and painted it, and
Tyson suckered me into painting. I don't paint. Let's do this together. We don't need to pay someone. I'm like,
we could do it all ourselves.
Oh, it was horrible.
I still feel like that,
but it was pretty cool.
Yeah. So, but the excitement of that, because remember, short sales, a lot of negotiation and different things. Mm-hmm. So the pursuit of foreclosure is like we could buy quickly.
It was a rush, yeah.
Instant, fast happiness. As soon as we bought a foreclosure, we knew we're making money. Another one, and I'll have another one, and I'll take another foreclosure.
Yeah. So that kind of kept you.
They say, I used to think when people approach work alcoholically is you did a lot of work. Mm-hmm. Today, I would say it's not the amount of work you do that makes you alcoholic. Like you're a workaholic.
It's the feeling.
It's the feeling. Like for me, it's like I do a bunch of work that produces a bunch of money. The money makes me feel just the idea, the mental, physiological idea, the thinking. My mind is sick, man. So just knowing we'd bought a foreclosure or we had 25 short sales in a pipeline, or like just those things kept me feeling good. Confusing for an alcoholic, potential drug addict alcoholic, because I didn't see the alcoholism. Like, where is the brown paper bag and sitting on a corner homeless alcoholic? Yeah. I don't see it. I was alcoholic AF while sober because it was my mind.
That's American fork for your mom, for Tammy. And fun, and all the other names we came up with. Okay,
and frequent. But so my alcoholism was manifesting powerfully while sober or not sober. But when drugs and alcohol dependence come in, which is from the divorce, because then I go out and I find who's a bartender in Carlsbad, knows how to drink, taught me how to drink like I wanted to drink, have fun like I wanted to have, to cover up this divorce, so that the horrible anxieties and depressions of the divorce, massive dependence on because now it's, oh, I'm grateful I got divorced. When the reality is that's just a lie, and I'm covering it with drugs and alcohol. So going back to happiness is if I'm seeking happiness in other people, work, materials, cars, houses, like what makes us really happy? Well, success, wealth, our children, a pet, plants, whatever that we can get obsessed on and find these happinesses are great. For the alcoholic, it becomes unmanageable because I can't get enough of it and I can't even function and do my life. So all my emotional needs today are met not through a person, drugs, alcohol. It's from God. And full dependence on a spiritual idea and theory is great. Step one, I had to admit that I can't go through life. I sought happiness in everything. I bought a lot of things. I've drank a lot of things. I've tried a lot of things. I've tried everything. And at the end of it, I got jail institutions, and luckily I'm still sitting here alive and not in prison because of the pursuit of happiness in all the wrong avenues.
So we were talking about this the other day. It's God, grace, right? And then I feel like I don't know that I've known a more humble person. And so I think it's the recognition of God or whatever people see as their God, but the recognition that we are all essentially powerless to agree, but yet powerful. I don't know. I'm capable. I don't know. I'm trying to wrap my brain around it, because a lot of times I hear people say, oh, it's because of God, but then I don't know. It's different. The way you approach it is unique than some others. You have a humility about you where it is what it is. Things are what they are. There might be things you regret, like maybe like your kids. You saw your kids this week, right? This weekend. I'm sure you regret not being there with them more, right? But you recognize the path you went down. Not sure like where I'm trying to get here. You have this humility about you. I'm just trying to help people understand when they hear God, because a lot of people hear that word. It means a lot of different things. It means like 10,000 different things for different people.
Some people's minds snap shut against it too.
Yeah. So I'm trying to open that up a little bit. Like you have this humility about you where you recognize that, I don't know, you have no, I feel like you have no ego, no pride.
Yeah.
Just like humility, right?
I still do quite a bit. That's one of my main
But
problems.
even you saying that you do is a part of what I'm recognizing, that because they say if you're like, yeah, I have no pride, like you do, right? Anyway, so it was just fascinating to me. Let's talk. My goal of this podcast was share 2 minutes of your backstory and then me mentor you. But I feel like I'm being mentored. This is awesome, man. You're like my hero, honestly. But
well, goes, it's reciprocal.
when you were showing Tara the big book, and I would talk about the big book for hours. I know you've busted it out on your parole officer, and I mean, in a good way. You really respect your parole officer and listen. But anyway, we won't digress there. But there was this sheet that you went through that I thought was very fascinating. Tara loves it. It's like been helpful to her. Where if you have any like hard feelings, because I think it's like a lot of it's like internal work, right? That you've gone through, but it's also like feelings when we have like we want to blame and point outward. We get angry, upset, whatever. How does that work? And then you go through. If you fill out this paper where, I don't know, can you speak to that a little bit? I feel like that's kind of like this little hack that can really help a lot of people.
That's the process of removing. So let's say I'm full of anxiety and depression and unhappiness and failure and hopelessness. I'm just going to give up on everything, my kids, life, work, and I'm just going to go to the bitter end, whatever that looks like.
Because that's when people turn to drugs and alcohol and even like work in an unhealthy way, or relationships in an unhealthy way, right? So continue.
So we're proving, at least I proved by human aid, like no matter how hard I worked at, like Tara shares, I mean, she's been in full compliance. Mm-hmm. And all that work and pursuit, diligence, consistency should have a nice payout and result emotionally. Mm-hmm. So why not the emotional results and payout? So with the 12 steps, despite your belief in them, they force you to take action. So like a spiritual life in theory, a spiritual realm, like, so Alcoholics Anonymous is not in theory. It's not in belief. We can go to church, we can read books, and we can believe in God and have these wonderful conversations and philosophical ideas and create all this stuff. Alcoholics Anonymous forces you to take action, and it forces you to get up off your chair and go turn that light switch on that turns the light on, whether you believe the light's going to turn on or not. Mm-hmm. If I say, Justin, there's a light switch on the wall, and you're like, that thing's stupid. It's a square, it's a little knob, that's stupid. Well, if you turn it on, it'll brighten this whole room. Yeah. And if you come from Africa, my sponsor, the reason I can try to stay in humility, because I feel I suffer from pride and ego still and self-seeking, sure, which leads me into drugs and alcohol. So I appreciate you saying humility, but like, I can't take credit for my recovery. But despite, so the steps and the 4th step, you know, you take the action, you will get the results. Yeah. Even with Tara, when I sit there, I'm like, the reason I kind of, not really supposed to push this, it's attraction. But like, if you do these things, I'm confident that you'll get the results, because I'm a dipwad, man. Just like on that show, I'm gonna, hey, you dumb idiot. Like, my behavior and looking on the outside, that guy's a moron. He's retarded. What is he doing? His life is just a ridiculous display of retardation that looks like drugs and alcohol. Like, I'm really quite not the most brightest person in acts and behavior and decision making. Like, I have failed. Look at all these women we're talking about in marriages. Like, I'm sure the audience doesn't even know where to start with that still. We might have to go through that again. But like, you know, I couldn't seem to have a healthy relationship with anybody if I can't with myself. Yourself. So the 4th step is a personal inventory that provides emotional cleaning, if you will. You look at assets and deficiencies. It leads to then taking responsibility. That's the key. We take responsibility and failures for our own emotional happiness somehow through that process. And then where there's spots where we may have harmed others through things, we make amends and we repair those, prepping our spirits, I would say, and our minds, our physical minds and bodies feel better as a result of this. Mine sure has, because we lack power. So like you said, like, we're powerful, we're not powerful. Well, what what I proved to myself is drugs and alcohol are but a symptom of my problem. You know, I didn't drink because I got divorced. I drank to get divorced. These are sanities and realities and the correct way of looking at things, because I lived in deception and darkness and my mind sick. So the 4-step kind of brings you out. It helps you look at things, remove them. The 12 steps are a lot about removal. We talk a lot. We've shared since I've been here, like I go to God to offer myself to him. I don't go to pull and beg from you or others. You're so used to dependence. Give me, give me, give me. I need. Help me, help me. I deserve this. I'm going to reward myself. Like today I offer myself to whatever God is. That's a 3rd step. By the 4th step, if I'm turning kind of like my will and life over and my decision making, my thinking, my emotional needs over to God and my life over to God, like I'm turning everything over to whatever God is, to have an actual experience with God, not in theory, not in belief, because we can sit around and talk and think, and I can get high off of just spiritual ideas and beliefs in God make me feel good.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So drugs and alcohol are but a symptom of the problem. The problem is me, my behaviors, my thinking, my emotional discomforts, my spiritual sickness. They talk a lot about like maladjusted life. I just have a nervous, fearful, a lot of it's fear and anxiety. How do I change all that? Well, on Human Aid, I can't. I've sought everything, every which way. You know, having kids was joyful. Having money was great. None of it worked for me. I still wasn't happy, kind of like what Tara talks about. That makes me feel sad because I get what she's feeling. Like I really do. It doesn't matter. And so through the 4th step, that's preparation for God, really. If I'm removing these things out of me, I'm making space for a spiritual experience with God. I'm going to now start to have a working, and he's going to start to come in and flow through me. Step 6 and 7 is asking for removal. So I don't want to go in too deep, but like it was powerful talking to Tara about once we discover some things that we have every right to have, and we want to cover and bury up these things and shame and guilt, and not ours. A lot of it's not our faults, you know. But again,
she's talked about sexual abuse she experienced. By the way, she's talked about it on the podcast, so he's been open about it. But
utter annihilation of trust in adults, humans, family, like that. Just how do you trust anybody? You go that, in my opinion, drove her into self-reliance. She has to now learn through the rest of her life how to take care of her. You know, thank heavens you came into her life. That's where I think
I feel blessed. You know, I don't look at it, but yeah. Anyway,
well, that's where I see God loves you, Tara. Justin came into your life, like, so it is paying off.
Yeah,
as far as things. So, but once we discover those discomforts, it's hard. Like once I discover even a resentment at the church that I had, like I've worked through religious resentments. Like it's not going to benefit me to go through talking crap about any human being, church, institution, police officers, because I'm harboring. If I'm harboring anger, well, let's say I harbor 40% angers, justified angers through these things. That's 40% where God can't come in and have an experience with me. So we want to get those out, remove them, ask certain ones that we can't let go of to be willing to have them taken away. And as we go through this process, that leads us into prayer, step 10 and 11. So once we have, it's like we cleared out all the weeds and all the stuff that's blocking us from the spirit. It's out of the way. Now God can come in and experience, and we grow spiritually. Step 6 and 7, spiritual growth daily. Now that I'm having an experience with God, whatever your concept of God can be daily, then now I'm spiritually growing. And a huge part too is like, I've gone through a path where like, I'm lucky to not be in prison. I don't have a car. I roll the trolley every day. I don't have money. How the heck are you happy on a daily basis? The 12 steps, utter dependence on God, and talk about like, so drugs and alcohol are a symptom of the problem. The problem is me. The problem is Tyson. I take responsibility of me.
Accepting, because you have no power until you accept full responsibility. There are literal victims, like what happened with Tara, for example, right? Like
Tons.
she was a victim, but it's like Tyson is responsible for Tyson ultimately. So continue.
And so the victimization starts to get worked through on that 4-step too, because whether a victim or not, for me, and I'll just speak from my own experiences, like I don't really have any room for victimization because I had a good life. I had good parents. I grew up well. I was taught well. I've had people like you in my life, Tara, like we've learned how to there's no excuse for my drug addiction, alcoholism, other than the fact that it's an illness that is a physical and mental. I'm a little bit different than like, I want to be like everybody else, but I'm not, Like that was the pursuit, is I'm not what I am. Like I want to feel good. I want to be normal. I didn't want to accept the fact that maybe physically and mentally I'm different. Like I have an illness that literally Medi-Cal covers it, but and I've learned how to treat it and address it through a spiritual solution. But so the lack of power was my dilemma. When you choose to invite a spiritual, that's what's so beautiful is like I couldn't get there trying to get back in the church, and I sought that because I couldn't get clean enough to get clean. Mm-hmm. Alcoholics Anonymous let me come dirty, filthy, a mess. I came dirty to get cleaned, and it's taking a daily washing for quite some time. Mm-hmm. God's powers come in and work through me daily to help. Literally, like I'm having a hard time feeling self-pity. Mm-hmm. Poor Tyson. Mm-hmm. Well, F that. Lucky Tyson. Mm-hmm. It's almost like a personality rearrangement through that process. And I ultimately just lacked power. I was blocked off from a spiritual life, not an idea in theory, but Alcoholics Anonymous has provided a way to do things spiritually, to live a spiritual life. That works enough that at some point you could set a religion on that. That was the other thing. I kept thinking I need to build this spiritual foundation to get rebaptized, get back in the church. Well, I couldn't get the foundation.
Yeah.
So today it's like just building a spiritual foundation that works enough to build a consistency, maybe, because that was the other thing too. Like I can't consistently do the right thing. Mm-hmm. I just couldn't.
I think a lot of what I'm hearing from you, but also what I've seen and heard from you since you've been here, is insane gratitude for everything, zero blame to anything or anyone. And at times it might come in, but you work through a process and just recognizing like the beauty. I mean, you literally, we're very blessed right now with where we live. It's pretty sweet. Like we love having you here. But literally a few weeks ago, you were in kind of a, not the nicest house with 4 roommates in one small bedroom with like 18 dudes in like not a very huge house, and most like recovering addicts that were constant stuff going on, people getting kicked out, people relapsing, right? Insanity. Not to mention your manager who you have to report to and say, hey, can I come home a little later? I'm going to be here. Like hooked up with your ex crazy girlfriend.
And now she's going to swing by at 5:30, by the way.
Totally. But you're still just happy and grateful. I'm not saying you're happy and grateful for that. That's part of the reason why we're like, let's get you out of that situation, right? But still, you're literally taking the trial. You had no vehicle. You had no money. I mean, at different times, you've had different jobs. You've gotten a little bit of money, and you were happy. I mean, you're literally right now wearing my old like hand-me-down shirt that like I was gonna get rid of. Like I think Brillin's wearing. Like I went to the gym. Like it's like you're wearing knee pads because you're like on your hands and knees, like working to help us, like laboring to, and you're just every day, like just being around you, and we could feel that. I mean, it's been interesting. It took us like a little bit, like, oh, Tyson, he has changed. Like he's totally changed. I remember a few years ago, when I was taking you to the first place.
And you were trying to solve the problem that I'm going to jail.
Yeah, it's all good, you know?
Oh, man. My hands, I don't know if you remember. Oh, that was bad.
But I remember being in a parking lot after we had your last meal before you were going to go into the home, right? The rehab house. I don't know what to call it.
Sober living.
There you go. Yeah.
That you found.
Yeah, I think
that's a miracle.
I think Tara found it. I don't know.
Okay.
But yeah, I drove you there, whatever. And I remember you talking about your parents. I think you had gone to some counseling, and indirectly you were kind of saying my parents did this to me. My parents caused this.
Mm-hmm.
And I was trying to, because I know it's important to show empathy and hear that. So I was like, oh, like it's important for me to recognize this and type like, oh man, yeah, that must be hard. And I still think.
Was it pretty believable?
Yeah.
It's a pretty believable bunch
totally.
of BS.
No, but that's the thing. Like, I was like, oh yeah, okay. Like I haven't seen and understood and heard Tyson before. It's important that he feels heard and seen and understood. But still, there was this lingering thing in my mind. It felt like you were powerless to that because you were given the credit, if you will, or responsibility or blame to another human being. Doesn't matter the situation. And I think
shifting responsibility.
I think that's what happens in life. We're talking about like drug addiction, but it's like you said, it's a symptom. And I think the same thing happens even in business. Like if someone wants to like take control of their life and they'll blame their spouse. Oh, my spouse won't let me. Dude, man up or woman up, whatever. Like,
thank you.
Don't blame.
That's the attitude.
Don't blame your spouse. Don't blame anyone. Like even Tara and I, like we've, a couple of years ago, we almost got divorced from outside. Everyone thought we were sold the business, everything I ever dreamed that I thought I wanted in life. Literally, even like serving in the church, like helping the PTA. Like, I'm like, I am financially free. I have a ton of money, like millions of dollars, never have to work again. We live by the beach. We have everything we could dream of. And we almost got divorced. I was probably more miserable than I'd ever been in my life because I had nothing else to strive for. But it wasn't until I stopped blaming and I started to look inward versus outward. And I still do plenty of blaming. But it wasn't until that, even moving here, there were times like we're in like freaking mansion. We like own a resort. And there were times of just like depression and misery because there's no more like nothing else to go for. And you're still not happy. There are times of happiness, but you're still not, as happy as I felt like I would be or should be. So the internal work, man, began and it continues. It's a constant battle.
That was good because as you're talking, like it allowed me to kind of process, let's go back. So that seeking a comfortable life, happiness, everything that you had envisioned, you had accomplished. And so you would think the results would be greater happiness.
Yeah, that you just feel like this constant peace and joy and happiness and vitality, right?
Instead, it was the opposite. Would that be like the complete opposite result?
Yeah, because not feeling all the things I thought I would feel, like everything I was doing before, I thought someday I'll feel this, someday. And then you get there and you don't. And so it's an insane downward spiral because you reach the top, you reach this mountain. And the thing you thought was going to be there, the feeling that finally someday when this happens, it wasn't there. And that was way more miserable than trying to climb the mountain.
Yep.
Because the feeling you thought you were like, I did all these things. I did all the right things. And here we are. We're about to get divorced.
Disappointment.
All the things that I thought would quote unquote make Tara happy. I'm like always trying to like make her happy and not that she wasn't happy or wasn't an amazing person. We just realized literally the beginning of last year when she was younger, she went through all this sexual abuse that her mind blocked it because it couldn't handle it until that moment, until then. Anyway, but yeah, no, I hear you. It's a work and I don't have the word. I'm not in that field, but to be happy with yourself and be good with yourself, that's powerful, man.
I think so as you're talking about that, like there's disappointment. These are ideas, goals, working towards happiness, fulfillment of church responsibilities, the standards and teachings religiously, that you guys have done pretty perfectly. Like,
Yeah, but I mean, there's a lot of nuance there, but sure. Yeah,
consistently to the best of your efforts, filled in PTA, like you guys did
every temple, yeah, like elder, like callings with a lot of responsibility
and done well, performed
sure,
well.
Yeah. I used to always be the guy that raised my hand for any move, any assignment, anything. I'm not just talking about church. I'm talking about like anything. I can do it. I can do it. I can do it. Yeah.
So that's what's so interesting is like everything's done well.
Mm-hmm.
And then the result at the end, some disappointment, some expectations not met as to what that feeling, what thought.
I was expecting someone else or another organization or something to make me feel a certain way about myself, like a validation because I did all these things. Like where are the blessings, right? Like where's the, like, I got money now. We got the big house. Like what's going on,
So an external source, possibly some of it's internal, like when we meet goals and responsibilities and commitments done well, we feel good.
Mm-hmm.
So there were
totally
probably a lot of temporarily, you enjoyed a lot of temporary feelings.
100%.
That it felt good to do it.
We moved here. I felt like a king. When we moved to San Clemente, ocean view, I felt like a king. And then after a while, I was like, oh, I don't know if this is good enough,
Yeah, and it'll just keep going.
Yeah.
But
now we're going to sell it all.
And that's what's kind of crazy too, is like, I love the path or what did you call it? The journey.
Yeah.
So here we are on this journey. Your guys' journey is phenomenal, and powerful for people to watch and see as far as accomplishments. The fact that you guys have maintained a 18-year?
Almost 18 years, yeah.
So I'm sitting on this side.
Oh, no, it has been 18. No, yeah. It's been, yeah. Anyway, we sometimes lose track. It might be 19 years coming up. How old's Brogan? Brogan's going to be 18. So, yeah, 19. It'll be 19 years in next month. This next month, yeah, in June.
Always, so sobriety through the whole thing.
Yeah.
Successful marriage with standard challenges and breaking points here and there.
Mm-hmm.
So all in all, pretty on my end, I'm the guy deficient who's made all the worst things that I didn't want to have happened
Mm-hmm.
for the most part. Two of the biggest is like I didn't want to get divorced and have an ex-wife. Barely knew how to parent when we were trying to parent together, let alone as a single dad, to then trying to rebuild an instant crazy family environment with a unhealthy person. We're both unhealthy. And then failures there to then not wanting to have another 2 baby mamas.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was unacceptable.
Have you gotten fixed, by the way? Might be.
That should be like
that might be
2:00 today.
When we talk about your financial progression, Tara asked me that. She's like, you should probably ask Tyson if he's been neutered.
So sanity. We're talking about sanity there. That would be a sane thing to do for sure. Thank you. If anything,
we'll put that on the list.
If nothing else,
it's not that bad. It's not that bad. I promise. You're like, oh, that's it. Okay.
I've actually seen my buddy. He filmed it and showed the film.
Wow.
A snip. But I think kind of circling back to like, so all these kind of two platforms of people, like I would say the only thing that I've noticed is like you take everything away and you start with nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And it was hard, thank heavens for you guys. Cause like I was always happy every day, kind of not going that far.
Yeah.
So having family come in and help has been just huge.
It's a win-win, man. I told you this before. When the student is ready, the teacher will appear. To me, I've never seen someone who is ready and not have doors open. There was a while where you were saying no to everything, and now you've opened the doors yourself, and the doors are opening. That's how I look at it. I mean,
I do a lot of recovery, which means like I see it the same thing that you and Tara are already doing, because once we've brought God into our lives, which you guys have had him there the whole time and still have him, he uses you in these cool ways, like a conduit. And so me just starting out trying to do that is like, when I found out that I wasn't making money, I was having a hard time, I come off of prescription medications and drugs and alcohol as a drug addict alcoholic. That's miraculous. And I used to kind of cruise around thinking like, I literally sell like ego and pride, like pretty egotistical.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm a miracle, man. Because I don't care what anybody else thought at that point. I knew my day-to-day emotional, like how I was geared. I knew things I couldn't do. Like I'm telling you, crippling anxiety. I couldn't go get on a trolley by myself and be by myself in San Diego by myself, navigating alone to go to doctor's appointment, to be in compliance today. Like, how am I supposed to be in compliance, work, go to the meetings needed for recovery, help others the way that I could help others, and fulfill medical and doctor's appointments? Like, how do I do that? Just simple things, one day at a time. And so for me, just doing that little by little, I knew that something was different. Like, I've been powered up. Like, I lacked power. God is with me daily, powering me through the day. As pathetic, this is what normal, I see 12-year-olds get on the bus and take the bus. And I'm like, it's a big deal for a 40-year-old guy like me. Like, hey man, I'm taking the bus by myself and getting places I need to go. Because I was dependent on a woman, on the phone. I couldn't be away from friends or ex-wife. Like, to be by myself, like, recovery is a lonely road too. So when I graduated from rehab into sober living by myself, man, like the last 7 months have been pretty lonely, because I have people, I see people in meetings, but they're kind of walled out. Like, I don't have a chum. Like Will, that's here, good friend. I see him maybe once a week, and I go help him with his kids, talk to him here and there. But really, like, and I think it's because when I turned my will and life over.
I only laughed because you got a promotion today. You're managing. You brought other people to paint, so you could be in here talking with me. It's great, right?
This is
you
great.
See why I do this?
Yeah, this is
might get a lot better.
I'm getting used to this.
You're pretty good. Like, we'll talk later, but anyway, maybe we have you start a podcast with this stuff. Anyway, but traction. Remember we talked about traction. We got to get you making enough money to talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? You got to be able to eat,
which
shelter.
I couldn't do recently.
Yeah,
like It was getting close.
Dude, I remember you. Like, I'm like, don't think Tyson's eating, and when he does, it's like beef sticks from like a gas station. Like, that was like your lunch sometimes, right? Like,
that was luxury.
You never told us that, but I saw it. I'm like, he's eating like a couple beef sticks, and that's like luxury, you're saying. So you got to be able to eat. You got to take care of your like basic human survival needs, and then from there, take care of Tyson. Literally, be sober, and then from there, you're able to pay child support, take care of your kids, which you saw this past weekend, which is awesome. Anyway, I think you had a couple thoughts.
Well, no, and staying sober through that, because I was working and coming off the medications
right.
and then doing the work part. Like, once you find, like, how do you have boundaries? The soul, when the soul's fed, you can put all the external materials into it and wealth and happiness. But if you can somehow absorb material and like things that we physically need, mentally we have, like, it feels good in our minds to have assurances and like comforts, but then you can somehow have a soul type experience where your spirit is healthy, your mind and body becomes healthy. That is a feeling that I think we're talking about that only comes from a spiritual life, a relationship with God. For me, I just kind of keep it real basic. God, my creator, Jesus, I'm good with all that. I don't have to define it, because we learned a lot. Like, we learned a lot about religion. I did on a mission. You did. And how did I still have so much fear and anxiety and lack of courage and bravery and anxiousness about life? If God was really working with me and powerfully, I'd be more like you. Like, you've accomplished, that's the difference. You've somehow kept your abilities, but a spiritual life and dependence on God to take you places I think that a lot of people can fail.
God and I have had plenty of struggles over the years. Not like it's been a perfect, easy path, but I don't think that's what you're saying.
But it's huge. That power. So for me, just starting off with that, like I had to learn that I was powerless. Like no matter what I did, I should be in prison. And so anything above that's kind of some gratitude. But I'll tell you, like feeding 20 grouchy, irritable, restless, drug addicts and alcoholics in their natural, untreated condition are irritable, restless, discontented. And discontented meaning like I got millions of dollars. I still ain't happy. Discontent. Like I'm not happy. I'm not content with, like I wasn't content with Janelle. And there's no excuse for that. So grouchy, fear, like these are kind of things that I was experiencing. So to be able to have nothing, like order food on an Amazon to a sober living, carry it in all my hands down a hill to a trolley and carry food on a trolley at 6:30 in the morning to fire up the ovens to cook for a bunch of guys, I'd like to say, you guys got the wrong guy.
Yeah.
I don't have a car. I barely have money. I got to carry these and walk here. Like, why am I making breakfast for all you grouches first thing in the morning? You got the wrong guy here. Mm-hmm. That commitment and being able to do that provided self-esteem. I was able to do it. God provided the path for that. Because like on my own, I'm like, I can't even do this normally, let alone now you're asking me to do this kind of stuff. So like those small things have just proven that on my own, I'm not that great. I'm pretty much nothing. I am nothing on my own. And so with God, like all things are possible, and dependence on that has provided this this consistent happiness daily. And then I look at a couple quick things like you mentioned where like look at the time before you guys called me, like financially struggling, staying sober, meaning spiritually, my spiritual expansion in my physical body, like I feel bright, I'm happy, I feel good. I got some anxieties and things, and I need to solve some problems. But I knew I was doing the right stuff daily because I'm feeling good. And then at the same exact time that these dynamics were happening, infiltrates my house manager.
Holy.
And what was so powerful about that is like the day I found out that she's coming to my house, disrupting, I didn't have to think about her. And there's an obsession there that we've talked about. Like I haven't had to think about her. Now I hear him talking to her, vice versa, that she's coming to the house. And I did get pretty weird that day.
Yeah, makes sense.
But I did what I typically do is I went to an H&I panel and I allowed God to like work through me for certain. So if I'm in constant thought of other people, this is what I found. If I need a car, help a guy who needs a car too solve his problem, I'll get the car.
Yeah.
If I focus on my anxieties and fears and my needs selfishly, as an alcoholic, I'm going to screw it up and get drunk probably. But if I go over and try to help somebody in the same situation, whether kind of like the searching for gold thing, I have to like give it away to find it. And then once I find it, I give it away. And so there's some weird spiritual power in like helping somebody else out, even though it's this altruistic thing. Like it's powerful. So that kept me okay that day finding that out. And then at the time when you guys called me, all I was doing was living and giving and being like I was okay, not okay.
Yeah.
But I was happy.
Yeah.
Like the fears and anxieties. So I would give those to, I'll kind of shut up with this 'cause I feel like I'm rambling, but like, so with, hey man, you knew well, because she came in and he's got a witness for her infiltrating an Alano Club meeting. This puts me in prison, by the way.
Holy.
This has gotten to a point, I've created a situation where I drink one beer or I make one phone call, I go to prison right now. So the consequences have become...
If you drink one beer, you go to prison?
I couldn't...
You're saying that would lead to prison.
So I didn't UA yesterday. I got there at 4:50.
Yeah.
Because they do close at 5, but not on Mondays. It's 4:30, so I messed up. So I got to go UA today still, but my PO let me out of the county to get the kids.
He means get drug tested, by the way. He says UA. Urine analysis.
Urine analysis. So he wants a urine sample proving that I stayed sober through the weekend going out of the county.
Wow.
And he told me, when I told my probation officer, I always want him to think I'm doing well. But when I told him about infiltrating the thing with I was like, hey man, like, I'll be honest, kind of having a hard time making money. This stuff's kind of like messing with me a little bit. I'm still happy and good because I'm still doing the program.
Yeah.
Because I genuinely was. but I'm starting to have some concerns here. He goes, great. He's like, you give me one bad UA, you're going to prison.
Like,
I
he doesn't
will
care.
recommend you to prison because you already got
4 years, right?
4 years. You already got kicked out of the 2 places. You caught 119 violations. 119 violations. I should be in prison with an execution of state sentence. Kicked out of 2 sober livings, manipulated my way into the 3rd one. Couldn't graduate on my own. I'm going to prison, and I don't want to go to prison. That's powerlessness.
Yeah.
So today, like, by the grace of God, I'm sitting here having this talk. Like, yeah, I've conceded to my innermost that, like, I'm lucky to be here. So
Tara calls you, and this is because we had presents that your parents gave us at Thanksgiving that were supposed to be for Christmas. We hadn't connected since then, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and several
6 months.
Tara's like, hey, how are we going to get you these presents? And I hear you on the phone, and Tara obviously is talking to you, so she hears you as well. And I'm like, this sounds like a different person. But then we also heard, like, you were looking for work. You were not asking us for work. I forget even how it got brought up. And we both just felt, hey, let's have him come help us. Like, we're doing all this stuff to get the house ready. We know you're very handy. You can do anything, basically. And we're like, pay that sucker. He's working for cheap, man. He's willing to work for anything.
Yeah, this is great.
So,
Thank you.
Very bring grateful. You here. Like, didn't plan on you staying in the guest house, but I'll tell you, I was even anxious after we let you stay in the guest house because I'm like, oh no, what have we done? Like, just remember all the stuff with the other person. I'm intentionally not mentioning her name because I'll probably have to go out and edit them all out of here. But it's been awesome. But you literally had nothing. We're letting you drive our truck because we have an extra vehicle. We were going to sell it, but we're like, oh, well, actually, we're going to let you drive it when we leave. Anyway, we were going to sell our van and then only have 2 vehicles. I digress. So let's transition. This is where the transition comes in. How much money do you have to your name right now?
After Tara paid me yesterday $1,000.
Okay, so she paid you yesterday. That's why you have
said
$1,000.
$1,000, and she paid my domestic violence things. Thank you, by the way.
Oh, awesome! I wasn't aware of that, but I'm glad she did that. So you have $1,000, but you also you got stuff to pay. You got to pay
300 of it's going today to
child support and different things. And anyway, okay. But before yesterday, you had like a couple $100 and
$299.
And before you came here a few weeks ago, you had
$38.
$38 and you had rent due for $650 that you like.
Yes.
So we're letting you anyway. No, but my point is, like, you are like less than broke, not to mention haven't paid child support in a long time. And I say pay child support, but you haven't been able to take care of your kids, right? So in a way, it's not like you were at zero. You were at like in the negative. And I'm pretty sure there's some debts from the past marriage as well, from a
$14,000, which I'm paying
fifth will that was stolen.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yeah, the fifth will. There's $100,000. Home Depot, $40,000.
Oh, really? $40,000 Home Depot too?
It's really hard to get a Home Depot card up to 40. Like, they start you at 2,500. Yeah. So we had bought so much over so long that getting up to $40,000 is big. And
so you have like over $150,000 worth of debt, essentially, more or less.
Oh, more.
More.
Yeah.
How much more?
That became deficient. $100,000 fifth will.
So bottom line is, you're not only at zero right now, you're at negative essentially, even though you have $1,000 in your bank account.
I owe Venmo $200.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Okay. So I love it, man. You're at this spot and you're happy, but like you're to a point where you're just happy with whatever you have. But it's like, hey, what about your future? What about your goals? Like, you haven't really been able to spend a lot of time with that because you've just been focused on sobriety, staying out of prison. Right?
Yeah, staying out of prison's a victory.
Literally, in a couple more months, you could be quote unquote homeless, right? So we have some goals to make, right? We got to get $1,000.
The pendulum swings hard. It's either homelessness or prison within a snap of, yeah.
Totally.
We can go either direction here.
So while the pursuit of money in and of itself is not, we all agree that we need money. Money is important, especially in your case. Money equals freedom and self-reliance and being with your kids. So what does your ideal life look like? And then we'll try to come up with your needs and then a number and then talk about how can we get there.
Well, it's a miracle that I have car insurance and a driver's license. So that's a good start.
Yep.
So vehicles are important for getting around. Housing.
And I think you were thinking about with housing going back to like a sober living with 20 dudes, but we talked about it. And ideally, when was the last time you saw your kids?
Over 2 years, and then some interaction for a year and then another 3. So 5 total years. No text, phone calls.
Wow.
Haven't seen or talked to my kids for 5 total years.
Minimally, sporadically, but
with a year of contact
and then
to no contact.
But when did you see them most recently?
Friday.
What was that like?
Powerful.
Yeah, so they're here for a couple days, right?
I love them.
Yeah. I love you too, man. That was cool.
Super, super excitement, but then also faced with the failures of a parent. So it's a lot of shame and guilt of like not providing and not being there. And what's there's no excuse.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And actually honestly talking to them about it was for them and myself. Like, we don't want to have those conversations. I don't think they wanted to take a minute to go do that.
Mm-hmm.
So it felt selfish
mm-hmm.
to put that on them. But I think fair that dad doesn't just pick them up, happy-go-lucky, take them back home
Totally.
with no acknowledgement. Like, they need to know they're old enough, and it's like, what the heck's up with their dad, man?
Mm-hmm. But this is all happening because of the changes you've made, the accountability you've taken, the work you're doing emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and physically. Physical work you're doing, and I know it wasn't like a quid pro quo.
Quid pro quo.
Quid pro quo, yeah.
Tongue twister.
Yeah. But you saying, I'm going to take care of my kids, not because I need to pay quote unquote child support, but because I love them and care about them. And anyway, you're just doing all the right things. And then all of a sudden Janelle's like, yeah, of course you can see it. You're like, oh, wait, what? I can? You know, it's like, yeah, because you're a stud.
What feels the best is it felt good to talk to them. And I don't want to give guarantees and promises because that's been the issue. Like,
mm-hmm.
the one thing you guys could count on is if you help me, it was temporary and I'd be right back to the thing over and over and over again.
It was enabling, which is why we were like, we're out.
So now, like, I feel confident telling my kids, like, I'll be here as your dad. I want to say one day at a time, but like from now until the end.
Yeah, you're committing.
That's the commitment, but I feel confident. Like, I feel like I've found a way to live that will allow me to be present for life. I always felt I was trying to grab onto something I couldn't hold.
So we have vehicle. It's pretty interesting. Your ideal life sounds to me like it's having a vehicle, being able to have your kids be a part of your life. And it's pretty simple, right? But to have your kids be a part of life, you need a place to stay that probably doesn't include 20 dudes coming in and out.
My own place would be nice.
Your own place.
Yeah.
Anything else?
I like how when we started this podcast, like, you're doing something creative. This is creative. Like, this is your art.
Mm-hmm.
And so obviously we don't just make art off the bat. You've had to put time in the trenches, working hard to get to this point. But I'd love to do something creative that makes money and benefits others. And I think the coolest difference today is whatever I'm able to accomplish financially and for my family, I get what I get to use, but also for the purpose of helping other people. Like, that's probably the biggest reward of going through this hell path and just emerging out, is I love being aware of other human beings on the planet, other people.
Yeah, Tara's connected with you more in the past couple of weeks than she has in 44 years.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
And I think about my sister a lot.
Yeah.
This morning.
It means a lot to her.
Like, I never really thought 2 seconds about nobody.
She's always, really loved and looked up to you. And
yeah, a lot of failures there. Like,
so your ideal, like, perfect life would be having a vehicle that you can drive so you can support yourself, your family. I mean, you were able to go pick up your kids too. Like, that's freaking cool. And every day almost you're picking up people and taking them to meetings, people who are where you were.
That was the concept. Like, it used to be like, I need a car. Well, why do you need a car?
Mm-hmm.
Well, so I can get places. I need a car so that I can be more useful and more of a channel for good. Like, whatever I can do to help others, it's transitioning a little bit, but like, just that concept of I need a car so I can go get other guys, because what happened to me was in a car. Like, my recreation started in the car.
That's
by
awesome.
Some guy reaching out, picking me up from a rehab, taking me to another institution. And in the interim of that drive, he treated the disease. He got me aware of like admittance that I'm an alcoholic.
Mm-hmm.
When I looked at him and heard that 5 years ago he's convicted with 7 felonies, can't own a firearms, but now owns 3 businesses and owns a firearms development company, a tech company. And he's got this beautiful truck. And I saw the materials, but like we're talking, materials are materials.
Mm-hmm.
I saw somebody who I believed was like me. He had his own little thing going in George Bailey where he's manipulating the South Side with drugs and like movement. We just manipulate our environments. And he was doing that to then sleeping on vodka bottles in Pacific Beach to now he's like, dude, powerful.
Yeah.
And he puts recovery. So if anybody needs help, that's first. Then he does work.
Yeah.
Works.
Awesome.
So the focus is.
He's able to do that because of his businesses. And he's been able to use his businesses to help people that are recovering as well. I mean, they have to reach a certain point, like you were saying. He doesn't just take anyone, but like he gave you a job when you were proven that you were able and willing.
He made me put resumes out, and he's my sponsor. And I was out hitting the streets trying to find a job until eventually he's like, yeah.
What's it like trying to get a job in your situation?
It's really difficult. Not impossible, but I was willing to do anything.
Yeah. No, but
I just couldn't find
your
it.
record, like you
know,
you have a felony, right?
A violent felony is what sucks.
Yeah.
Employers don't want violence in their business. That's hard.
It's wild. You're like the least violent guy I know. But needless to say, the point is, for a lot of people, they would think, oh, this guy's in a hopeless situation. He's got over 6-figure debt.
I'm effed.
Yeah,
What it feels like.
6-figure debt.
You're effed.
He's got several kids from more than one person. Child support, no truck, no house. You're screwed. Okay, so
that's what it is. How do you turn that around?
Okay, let's do this. You ready?
I'm ready.
Let's come up with your number. What's your monthly number that you need to make to have all the things? And once again, we're not talking about like gold and like fancy watches, all this stuff. But what's the amount of money that Tyson needs to make to be able to have a nice place where your kids can come stay, a vehicle, pay off some of his debts, support kids, and then of course, be able to go hang out and do some fun things and all the things, right? Insurance, all that stuff. So let's go through this quickly. How much is like rent for a decent 2-bedroom apartment or condo in San Diego cost?
$2,800 probably.
Okay,
24, 22.
So I actually had to look it up yesterday. I'm like, ooh. So
what is it?
Depends, but you don't want to stay in the ghetto if you want your kids to come stay with you, right? So I'm just calculating $3,000.
That sounds about right.
Right. So $3,000, but then like you have, how much would a car payment? You can use our truck while we're gone. So you've got, unless we come home early, you've got like a year.
500.
So some of these things, will help you.
500.
Car payment, you're thinking $500. Okay.
I mean, a $10,000 car. A lot of this too is with the mindset with me, because we talked about I'm deficient.
Mm-hmm.
So when I go buy a pair of Vans shoes, because I want to look cool, my sponsor tells me I'm wearing other people's money on my feet.
Totally. So $500 just in a car that drives, basically. Child support, $1,000 a month, you think?
Sure.
Is that about
yeah,
right?
that sounds about right.
These are round numbers. We're not making your fixed budget or anything. Then you got food. How much food do you think per month?
Man, just even tackling that one's a big one.
Yeah.
$350
a month? You eating rice and beans? I guess we have family of 5. Okay, I'm gonna put 500.
Yeah, probably 500 because
I think 350.
I just got the EBT and it's already gone.
I know how. Yeah,
it's 280.
I'm gonna say I know how generous you are too. I'm gonna put 1,000 because.
Jeez.
Well, if you think about it, you're like gonna be taking your kids out and stuff, and I know I'm not saying you're gonna do this.
Yeah, that's just including.
I'm not saying you should do this, but I know how you are. Like, you go and buy food for other people for things. Like, anyway, I'm putting 1,000 for food, and then you got like car insurance, and you have health insurance. Do you have life insurance? Do you have any of that stuff?
I have Medi-Cal, which is free.
Okay,
but that's based on my income.
You won't have it for long.
So insurance, yeah.
So I don't know how much all this stuff costs. I'm gonna put $1,000 just for like all insurance. Because I know you're gonna help pay Kels. I don't know. You have different. $1,000 for insurance. Are you getting nervous? Are you getting like stressed here?
Yeah, this is.
And then how about debt? Like you want to pay off your debt, right?
Holy cow.
Is that the plan? Is that the goal?
Yeah, it must.
Okay.
Like net right now.
So let's do $5,000 a month to try to pay off debt. That's just a goal. It's just a goal, right?
These are goals.
We're going to come up with a number that we're going to see, is this attainable? And not only is it, but how is it obtainable, right? Is this blowing your mind to try to think of making this kind of money?
This is why I don't ever think of this stuff.
I know. That's why I'm like, Tyson, we got to talk.
Avoidance.
Man. We got to talk.
Yeah. This is good.
Am I missing anything else major?
Phone insurance,
It's like
car
utilities,
insurance, phone,
yeah,
housing,
entertainment, or like going out, like buying. I know you bought a gift for your friend's daughter for her birthday the other day and stuff like that, right? So let's do 500 for like auxiliary. Okay, so that puts us at 12,000. 12,000 a month. But do you know how taxes work? Talking to the mic.
I haven't paid taxes in 5 years. But I haven't really made money for taxes either. So
if you're gonna spend 12,000 a month, how much do you need to make per month? Do you know how much taxes are?
Mm-mm.
I also think you need to be saving. You're not getting any younger, right? And your goal is to be an artist. So if you want to be an artist, you need to be saving some money. So I would say you want to save 20% of what you make. And my guess is for the amount of money you make, you're going to be paying about 30% of that in taxes.
Okay. That sounds.
So we'll just say 50% between savings and taxes, right? So in order for you to make, you need to add another 6,000 onto here.
There's no hope here.
I was kind of running some of these numbers yesterday, and I'm like, he's going to crap his pants. But you're not screwed.
Too late.
You're not
They're
screwed
crapped.
because you don't need this tomorrow. And you don't need it. You'll survive. You can have roommates, and it's not the end of the world. So the goal here is not hopelessness. The goal here...
I'm going to go have a drink after this.
No, don't do that. Don't do that. The goal here is for you to have this, call it a BHAG, a big, hairy, audacious goal. And what I found, you never heard that term?
No, that's awesome. BHAG.
What I've found is when you come up with a number and you don't say, can I get to that number, but how can I get to that number? Like, you can't keep working for us for $30 an hour to get to this number. That's helped you get traction. That's helped you, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's helped you put food on the table. It's helped you be able to help take care of your kids for a little bit. But to reach all your goals, you got to get here. But what's cool is once you get here and once you have like your debts paid off, then you have like an excess. So I know eventually you want to get into art and stuff, but we want to bridge into that. So first of all, one thing I would recommend, maybe you don't need to start quite yet, but once you get some traction on your goals and like you feel like you get some things going that we're going to talk about, start listening to podcasts whenever you can on artists. Like look at YouTube, people who are making money with art. Because I guarantee you there are hundreds, if not thousands of people out there making money with art, not just in the traditional way, not where they make a painting and it magically becomes like the whole world wants it. That usually happens after people die, right? Anyway, I don't know a ton about art, but you hear the starving artist, right? Which the other day you were mentioning to me like, I'd love to do art, but yeah, that's just probably not realistic. I'm like, it's totally realistic. You can totally make a great living with art. I don't know how, but I know you can because I guarantee you can. I just know you can.
I'm going to try to come up with some really sexy Twitter dance and post it and just hope a lot of people like it.
There you go. And then they can go to your special page. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Follow me.
I don't know if that's going to work so well, man. You may not get quite the, I'm going to be honest with you, Tyson. You're a good looking dude, but so these are my thoughts. While you're learning about art, you don't have time. Some people want to become a celebrity or an influencer, right? They're like, I want to do a podcast, or I'm going to become Instagram famous or YouTube famous. If they have no monies and they need to make money ASAP, It's not going to happen. Just let everyone know out there, do not think you're going to start a podcast and make a ton of money. Ask me how much money I've made so far from this. Nothing. We spent a lot of money. Something like this, if you're doing education, trying to create a following, I don't know about art. I just think it's going to take you a little bit of time to figure that part out. But trying to create like a platform like we're creating, it takes a year or two or so, right? So you got to get that traction. You got to figure out how to get your bills paid. I think once you have like 6 to 12 months surplus, that's when you start to make that transition. And I say start, meaning you can start today as far as like learning about that. But before you do that, I think you need to learn or figure out the fastest and quickest way to try to work, not to try, there is no try, to work towards getting towards this 18,000 a month number.
So we came up with the number 18,000 a month to put IRS and savings minus just general costs to afford what we wrote down.
So you need to make $216,000 a year. Not need to, like that's your number. That's the number we're going to try to reverse engineer. I wish you guys could see his face right now.
Why don't you just make it $1 million?
Well, my thoughts are it's harder to make 100,000 than it is to make $1 million. In order to get to $1 million, you have to use leverage. You have to think outside the box, right? You can get to 60, 70, 80, even 100,000 through your own merits, right? But to get higher, you're going to have to use leverage, which is other people. I'll do another podcast on this sometime, but it's people, finance, technology. Anyway, I've come up with like 5 or 7 points of leverage that people can use. That's how you get to the, unless you're like a doctor. I mean, you got to be making about as much as a doctor makes just to live in a basic apartment, right? But no, I think you can get to $1 million, but let's walk before we run, Tyson. Don't get carried away, Tyson.
Man, I'm going to go back to that EBT line. Get me some of that $280 a month.
Yeah, you're not going to get any free things here in a couple months. So we've talked about this a little bit, but what are some things that you can start doing tomorrow? And I say tomorrow, I really mean 2 weeks after we get our house listed, because we need you to really be focused. What are some things that Tyson is good at that he could start making money like tomorrow doing? Some things you've done, or anyway, go ahead.
Is this
we've kind of talked about this before,
the house?
Yeah. Okay. So something that you brought up to me, I'm like,
furniture restoration and resell.
So this is something you've done before. I mean, you flipped houses before. You've done furniture. You worked at a water plant. And anyway, that's not going to make you anything. Yeah. So your choices are
LED light up coffee tables. They're going to be big.
I hear people all the time. They want to go do this brand new thing, but it's like, that's not going to make you money fast. So for you, we need to get more traction. You got a little bit of traction to where you're able to get food and have shelter. Well, you have our shelter, but you have a few basic needs. Your next step is, how do you get some of these other needs? I don't think flipping houses, we both know that takes a long time to get into, and it can be very stressful. And I don't think that's the best place for you right now in your situation.
I agree. I tried it for a second. That was rough.
Now, flipping couches, I think you told me you can get going on that like tomorrow. You could probably flip a couch.
Today. I could pick one up and drop one off tonight.
So let's run some numbers on that. First of all, to give a little bit of content for everyone listening who's listened to us ramble for two and a half hours.
2.5 hours?
I think so.
Felt like a half hour.
I know, right? What is your process for flipping these couches?
First, you got to find the right piece of furniture, and I've already been doing it quite a bit, so I did know what to look for. Like IKEA frightens. So what you're looking for is like a sectional with storage for all the college kids and small, because all the small apartment people can barely afford here. Love that couch. If I can get that couch for $200 and I can sell it $450 delivered, I'm making $250 right there.
Awesome.
And it'll sell itself. Once I put it on offer up, it's sold.
Yeah.
In fact, I can go pick it up and I'll have a pre-existing picture of it, but I'll repost it.
Yeah, you'll sell it before you even pick it up, just to make sure you have a buyer. And then it's like one trip.
That's as the ball gets rolling. So let's just say we're starting off. I think you buy, sell, clean, deliver.
I think the other day you mentioned to me, you feel like you can make 600 a day or 1,000 if you like bust your butt.
I think if it's full time, 1,000's a pretty attainable
Okay.
number daily. Oh, excuse me. Wait, 250. Okay, 750 a day
Okay. So you think
is attainable
you Tyson alone, all by yourself, can make $750
a
day
day.
flipping
Yeah.
couches. So
1,200 was with 2 people, and that's like every other day. So you're like 600 to 1,200,
gotcha.
2
Okay.
people.
So 750
It's almost better just to do one person too.
times 750 times 5. So you work 5 days a week. Your Saturdays are kind of like your days to recover,
Saturdays
right?
and Sundays are pretty good pickup days.
Okay. So 750 times 5. Let's say you do 5 days a week. If you do extra, great. But that's $3,750 per week times 50. So you take a couple weeks off. So that puts you at $187,000 right there.
It's pretty good money.
And that's doing it on your own. I know you mentioned it's better with one. I think it just depends on the situation, because to me,
Oh, the help is nice. Yeah.
I don't know if formula is the right thing. If you're making or able to make $750 a day, that's almost $100 an hour, right?
Mhm.
So if you are able to duplicate, like if you can hire someone for $20 an hour to help you find couches, and maybe even hire someone for $20 per hour to help you deliver couches, then you become like management, right? So that is another skill, right? That I think you're pretty good at already. And then you'll be blessing the lives of other people that you know, right? Through AA or whatever it might be. If one person can do $750 worth of work per day, let's say you have 2 people doing couches. What if they're only delivering and picking up couches and you're kind of running air traffic control? Do you think between the 2 of them, it could be $1,500 a day?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, if I sat at the helm.
You see where this is doable, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's $1,500 a day. You pay them each $200 a day. What does that leave you with?
13. Wait, what?
If you pay them each 200,
Oh, 11.
that would leave you with 11. So let's run those numbers.
Okay.
See, this isn't like rocket science. I'm not that smart. It's just numbers.
You're master of scaling a business.
But like my goal is to make this as simple as possible. Sometimes people overcomplicate business.
Mm-hmm.
My brother, Derek, we were in the same geometry class together, and he got like an A and I got a C. And I was a senior and he was a sophomore. Like, I'm not very good at math. I really struggled with algebra and all that stuff. But I was the multiplication champion in 3rd grade because my mom drilled me every day with flashcards.
That's awesome.
And so addition and multiplication, that's all you need. Like some very bad. And today we have calculator today, as if we didn't have them before, right? You can use a calculator, right? So it's like, what amount do you want to make and how can you make it? And the truth is, technically with 3 guys, I would assume that they can make more than $750 a day if they're not doing all the stuff you have to do. Maybe do you think they could do 3 a day?
Oh, if it's 2 guys?
No. I mean each. Do you think each of them, if they're only driving? We'll stick to 2 a day.
That's where you scale into like a warehouse, and I have it here.
Totally.
Then they're just coming, deliver, come pick up, deliver.
We want to keep it still somewhat simple, but yeah, you could have like a mini location or whatever.
It's scalable.
It's very scalable. So
A storage unit.
totally. There's lots of different options. There's nuance here, right? There might be someone out there saying, oh yeah, but what about, no, like listen to the concept. It's conceptually, right? Like Bill Allen talked a couple weeks ago about the OODA loop in a Navy. He used to fly Navy jets, right?
Right.
And there's this concept called the OODA loop, and it's OODA. So first is observe and orient, like what's going on and what does it mean to me in my current situation? Then based off of that information, you make a decision. So D is decide, and then A is act. You take action. Then to kind of go along that, we talked about HTP, which is hypothesize, test, and pivot. So kind of like the scientific method, right? And the faster you can do that in a dogfight, the faster you win. So the goal is not to know all the answers. The goal is not to have this 40-page business plan. The goal is to write some chicken scratch and to say, I have a hypothesis based off of the information that you're sharing with me. I have a hypothesis that if Tyson on his own can make 750, Tyson with two other guys collectively should be able to make 1,500. I don't think that's a stretch, right? And we're not even talking about working weekends. We're talking just working weekdays or 5 days a week, however you guys work it out, right?
Right.
But if you can make $1,500, you pay them a total of $4, like $200 each. That leaves $1,100. So then that puts you at $5,500 per week times 50. You see, there's 52 weeks in a year. So I'm giving you 2 weeks vacation. You're welcome.
Thank you.
$275,000
By scaling it with
Yeah, but this is like how simple is we didn't do any crazy scaling here.
Wow.
This is pretty basic scaling. We can do the same thing. How do we get this to $1 million? Is that where you want to go? Do you want to go there? Right? Like,
yeah, let's go.
So we need a 3x. Let's say
that's
4x.
2 guys. We need 6 more guys. So that's a little over $250,000.
Yeah. So yeah, that's right. We need to
6 more.
So if we were to 4x's. Yeah, you're right. You're right. See look how smart you are, Tyson.
I am not the multiplication champion.
I know. See, you do not need to be the multiplication champion. So yeah, if you have 6 guys, and once again,
I just took what you taught me.
This might start to sound overwhelming, but you don't start with 6. You start with 2. Or start with 1. Start with you. Let's get you to where you're making, you could be making 6 figures, literally starting in a couple weeks.
It all sounded like I wanted to cry, and now it's possible.
Now it's exciting, right?
Now it's exciting.
And these things are going to give you all this freedom. But let's talk about, so if you have 6 guys, it's going to be, a little harder to manage. I would definitely have at least one, another traffic control person. You're managing the whole thing, but maybe you're managing 3 people. I don't know. I'm just throwing stuff out. Or maybe you have one other person that you work with who's managing all 6. And by managing, I mean, you're managing it all, but this person's telling them where to go here, that type of thing. Right? You're going to have a little bit of capital, but the capital comes back pretty fast. So you don't need a lot of startup costs. It's pretty minimal. I'll be your investor.
Oh.
Just kidding.
Yeah.
I don't even think you need much of an investor.
If you're in my position, probably.
It would not be difficult because you're literally buying and selling the same day. How much does a couch cost?
$150 to $300.
Total investment to get this thing going would literally be $150, a couple $100, because then you're going to start making money. You're going to be able to
You could start off $250.
Exactly.
It'd be a little tough, but you could make.
I'll be your
this
investor.
work. Yeah.
Can I have 20%? That'd be sweet, but messed up. You look different than you did 15 minutes ago when we started talking about this number.
I was sick.
And now how do you feel?
Back to normal, but excited.
Even more excited, right?
More excited.
Empowered. I remember in Rich Dad, Poor Dad, it talks about how when you want something, it's not, oh, I can't. It's no, how? How do you get that? How do you figure that out? Right? So we're going to keep following your journey. I didn't want to bring up the $1 million. I'm glad you did. I think you can have a 7-figure business doing this, but you may not want to. You might get to a good 6 figures, and then you might want to focus more on learning about how you can make money doing art.
Simplicity, though. I like how you're focusing on simple.
Keep it simple, man.
This is a simple, achievable.
Very achievable. Get a little mini warehouse or whatever. They bring them in. People are cleaning it. It could be very simple. You could have a $2 million a year business pretty easily with a decent warehouse. You could start. I know there's
Airbnb people are cheap. They don't want to buy brand new furniture. They need help with designing. There's a lot of there's avenues.
There's so many avenues. You might start flipping. I saw a podcast. I'll actually refer you to this podcast that I've listened to. It talks about people flipping all kinds of stuff. And I didn't even know about all these things until you, right? So you got people flipping mattresses. This could lead to other things, focus first on what you know and are good at. But then someone else oh, I got this mattress too. Do you want that? It's oh, let me see, And then we just sold a dresser the other day, right? You could flip all kinds of things. You could eventually, now, once again, I'm trying to be careful to bring up too much, but you could eventually be a junk removal service. You charge a ton of money for junk removal.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have these trucks, right?
Yeah. Yep.
You charge a ton of money for junk removal, but then you take a lot of the stuff and you sell it. So they stop by the warehouse first. You take all the stuff, you flip that. So you're selling some of the stuff that you're getting for free, right?
There's a ton of that stuff in that Because you go to pick up things and then people are just like, can you just take this with you too?
Totally.
Same concept as here. Like, hey, will you take these mirrors and...
Then you got the trucks. You could start a moving company. Anyway, don't get carried away. Focus is what makes you rich, honestly. And then another thing I was thinking, like you're pretty good on the microphone. You're good at talking. You're funny. You're entertaining. You're incredibly good looking.
Oh, thank you.
You could start a course or a program, an online program teaching people the step-by-step of how to flip freaking couches. And once again, I'm not saying you want to go down that path. I'm just saying the possibilities are endless. I think you could get this business going to where you only focus on it a couple hours a day or a few hours a day. Other people are kind of running it. And then you're figuring out how to make money doing art. Or maybe you're like, screw it. I just want to do art for fun. I don't need to do it to make money. So I have this other business going. I love art. I just want to enjoy art. Right?
Right.
Do whatever you want, man.
I love it.
It's all yours for the taking. Just because you're a freaking stud.
You're a stud. Thank you for taking me through that, because there is massive avoidance to that reality. You went through it. I got sick. Literally. I was like, ugh. This is why I don't want to.
I saw it.
To its possible empowerment, excitement, and motivation. Wow. That was a journey.
Not only do you have your kids back in your life, but you're like an example to them and a provider and like all these things, right? You can go once you're done with your probation. I was going to say you can go on these trips with them, but you literally took my kids and your kids over the weekend and you went on a hike.
It was awesome.
And you got these cool rocks and you painted them. I'm like, that's as cool as like any trip. It was beautiful. It's awesome.
I hope they had fun, because I loved it.
They had so much fun, man. They had a great time. Well, this has been awesome. So we're going to check back in. I'm going to list the house in a couple weeks. And I think once we do, we'll have you start doing a couch or two. And the goal is by the time we move out in 2 or 3 months, depending on when the house sells and stuff, that you at least have a good chunk of money that you can go out and get your own place, right? So you can begin this, right? And you don't need to start paying off the debt from day one. Your main priorities are keep taking care of you and your recovery and child support and getting a place. You're going to have our truck for a year. But after that year, by the time we get back, you're like, I can get a vehicle. I can have a nice apartment. I already see it happening, man.
To be self-supporting, because like, yeah, in marriage and with Janelle, and like, that's where so much of that dependence shifted. But to be able to provide housing for myself and my kids and then take care of them, oh man, like what you guys do every day.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. I'm grateful for you, number one, for coming on and being super vulnerable and talking about all this stuff so people can see where you're at. And I think it gives people hope no matter where they are, of what is possible. And we've taught a lot of theory on the podcast, which I think is really cool. But I was like, I want to start bringing people on and their real actual situations and showing them how, or letting them show themselves how, because I just like to talk to people and let them see what's possible, showing them how they can turn their life around. And so us talking this past couple of weeks has allowed me to see that. And I'm like, oh, this would be super powerful for other people to see, I think.
So this is the theory, and then now it's action.
Yeah, now it's time to implementation, right? But it's also not rocket science. Like, it's theory, but part of it has already been proven. Now, as we take action, we get more information back. Like, you might realize I can make $900 per day. Or you might realize, oh, it's like 600. And that's okay too, because those numbers still will work. It's just, how do we make them work? How do we let them work? Anyway.
I like that. How do we let them work?
So we never want to get down on ourselves or beat ourselves up. I can't tell you how many times I've had a theory and it hasn't worked out exactly how I thought. And I'm like, oh, is it gonna work? And then I sleep on it. I'm like, oh, but what if I tried this? And that's why they call it the OODA loop, because it's a constant loop that just keeps on going. You think about a dog fight, like you're constantly trying to like move and adjust and adapt. It keeps on going. It's not a 42-page business plan that you spend a year writing up. And no, it's a theory. I think this will happen. You take action on it. You don't need to take a lot of risk. And then you just keep adapting and adjusting. And as you look at it as a constant moving target of adapting and adjusting and pivoting, then there's no feeling of failure. There's no feeling of, oh, this didn't work. Oh, man. Because that's when we get down on ourselves and we just throw in the towel, right?
That's so cool.
There's no
so
failure.
It's a working, what do you
It's
call
a working business plan, I guess.
It's
I don't know.
working business plan that
A
you
living,
implement,
working, changing every day.
and
Because
you grow through that, through the experiences it provides. You're doing it, it loops, and then that's cool.
It's pretty cool. Pretty cool way to look at it. So, all right, man. That's it, man. Do you have any final words for anyone out there who might be, maybe has kind of like lost hope in changing their life, we'll call it, or whatever they want, like they're at a certain low place in their life, or it's just they're trying to figure out how to better provide for their family, or maybe be able to go on a trip, or change they're not loving their career. Anything, any words of advice you have?
I think the only thing I can say to like deflect is, if at some point, I don't know where that point is, but all I did was come to believe that maybe something's possible other than what was happening at that point. And in my experience, like, I don't know what God looks like. I've never seen him. I don't know what it means to lack power, and these other manifestations and symptoms pop up in life that look horrible. And then spiritual perspectives, like, didn't even have a spiritual perspective, you know? And so with the coming to believe in possibility, different things, but like, I see God show up in people, like the image of whatever it is. So I think a lot of this path, because we have talked a lot, but for me, it's like combining my human experience with a spiritual part that brings greater fulfillment. But through that, like, you know, people show up. Like, I've seen a belief in something that I don't totally see what his face is or her face, but a spiritual idea of God show up in my life. One, like, that's what blows my mind. Like, you know, from Brett to Kenny to Joe to you and Tara, it's like, if I just let go, believe in this, and start doing it, it's been phenomenal for me to be a part of that process. Because it's like, this is straight perfect timing answers that I didn't really ask for. These are needs being met through family, which feels so much better than trying to go out and manipulate and control and fight for it. So maybe for some of the people, just like, whether you believe or not believe, or you want to improve your life, like, I don't know what that is, but like, it's possible through some type of belief in, I don't know, something.
Something. No, I
don't know how much you want to define.
No,
that,
you're right.
like,
You're right. Like, faith in something, faith in what is possible.
Even faith in a business plan.
Totally.
Faith
Exactly.
in work. Faith
Exactly.
in whatever it is that you're searching for. Like, the results, in my experience, the results are coming. Like, what the heck?
Mic drop. You can literally take that mic and drop it if you want.
Thump.
We feel the same about you, man. We love you. Like, this to us, I don't know if there's anything in life other than, you know, my family, my kids, but that bring me greater joy than being able to be a part. I don't feel like we've done anything. I feel like, well, I feel like
everything.
Just being able to like experience this, like, this is what we live for. This is what brings us so much joy and happiness, and just, we love you, man. It's been awesome. So
love you guys.
Just getting started.
Have a relation, like a real relationship with family.
Totally.
Not just a hi and bye, but like an actual working relationship with human beings and family. That's badass.
And with that, we will see you all next time on the Millionaire University Podcast.
See you.
Bye-bye. Woo! I hope you guys got as much out of that interview as I did. I want to thank Tyson again for his courage and vulnerability and willingness to come on and share his journey. I know it's helped me, and I can imagine it's helped a lot of you out there as well. Something Tara and I have talked about a lot recently is, although someone like Tyson, their struggles and weaknesses might be more visible, we're not that much different. We see so many similarities of struggles that we've gone through. And I just want to let you know, if you're struggling, as you struggle, through life, through hardships, through things, just know you're not alone. The pursuit of happiness, the pursuit of development and growth and overcoming your inner self, your weaknesses is real. It's very real. And it's challenging, but that's what life is all about. And you can do it. Believe in yourself. Look internally, take accountability, take responsibility for your actions, for your life. The podcast is Millionaire University, but it's not just about becoming wealthy financially. It's about obtaining wealth in all areas of your life, in your health, in your family, in your spirituality, whatever that might look like for you. And probably most importantly, learning to truly love and be good with yourself, which is something we are constantly working on every single day. Tyson's been through the ringer, but he's constantly helping other people. Like every day he's helping someone else. I've been trying to talk to him more about the money side, because I'm like, hey bro, like you got to make money too, you know, but he is such a selfless human being. If you or anyone you know would like to connect with Tyson, maybe you're going through some addictions or something yourself, I know he would be more than happy to connect with you. Go ahead and shoot me an email and I'll put you in touch with him, justin@millionaireuniversity.com, and I'll be happy to put you in touch with him. Other than that, keep going, keep cranking. What are the goals that you have in your life, financially and personally? Familial, is that the right word? Physically, what are those goals? Write it down and move towards it, adjusting and pivoting as you go. It doesn't have to be a permanent, concrete, solid 42-page plan. Just take a few minutes, just like Tyson and I did. It doesn't take long. Take a few minutes to think, what do I want in life? What's it going to take to get there? And start moving forward. You never fail. You just keep adjusting as you go. And if you look at it that way and you think about it in that regard, I think it'll really help you continue to move forward, because we really struggle feeling like we've failed or we haven't achieved something. But failure more and more, especially after talking to Tyson and seeing all these different things, it's almost like not even something I even believe in at this point. But I believe in you. So believe in yourself and just take it one day at a time. What is the one thing in your life right now that you want to improve? It might literally just be learning to love yourself more or be good with yourself. And that's okay too. That's awesome. Once again, if there's ever anything I can do, if you have any questions, anything at all, Tara and I are both here, happy to help. Reach out to us at support@millionaireuniversity.com, or our names, Justin or Tara, at millionaireuniversity.com, and we will do our best to help you in any way we can. But we wish Tyson all the best. We look forward to following his journey. I believe in him. I know he's going to make it happen. He has made it happen, but I know he will continue to reach those goals that he's working towards, so he can be there for himself, for his kids, and his health, and all the things that are important to him in his life. So yeah, it'll be fun to follow him on this journey, and we'll be following some other people on their journey. I've also reached out to some potential longer term, more permanent millionaire mentors. I'm pretty excited about it. I won't mention some of the names quite yet, but just know that we have a lot of exciting things coming here at Millionaire University, and we're more excited than ever about the future of this platform and the future for you, our listeners. So get out there, believe in yourself, make something happen, and we will talk to you next time on the Millionaire University podcast.